Hello, Alaska. Glad to have you here. We're having another Meet the Candidates. We are currently sitting here at the Windbreak Hotel in Wasilla, Alaska. Many of you know this place as the Trout House. I want to make sure I give a big shout out to them for giving us this location today to be able to do this Meet the Candidate. I am sitting here with Stephen Duplantis. He is running for Senate District L. Stephen, introduce yourself and tell us, where is District L?
District L is, my name's Steve Duplantis. I go by either Stephen or Steve, either one. District L is southwest Anchorage. It's basically from the Rabbit Creek shooting range, if any of you Second Amendment guys know where that's at. I'm sure you do. North, down up Super Highway to about Tudor or so, and then go west to maybe Minnesota around there, and then back down south again through Bayshore. Those areas there. So pretty much south to southwest Anchorage is where District L is, and it's House districts 23 and 24.
Okay.
Yeah.
So they got two representatives that work in that general area too.
Right.
Why are you running?
To be honest, I ran for political office 2 years ago. I dropped a good amount of my own money in that, and I vowed never to do that again because I lost. We lost a lot of money, and of course it didn't win because I would be in Juneau if I did, but I didn't, and I wasn't going to run for office again. And around December, January timeframe, the elections are coming up, and we're seeing, all of these seats are coming available, the Senate seats, the rep seats again, the state reps. And my wife, Demita, and I were talking, and there was a guy who stepped up and put his name in the hat for Senate seat, District L. I believe his name is Jim Crawford. I believe his name is. Yes. He had, but he had a residency problem, so he had to drop out. So there was nobody, and we had noticed that in the Muni election when it happened, that there were several assembly seats that ran unopposed. So basically, guys like Christopher Constant, my God, that guy should not even be on the assembly. He's out there.
With the remarks he's made here recently.
Yeah, especially against my friend Rabbi Greenberg. I'm friends with Rabbi, and the way he treated him was pathetic. So he ran unopposed. They ran unopposed, right? So we're like, why is this? All right, why are people running unopposed? So at least to give people an option, right? And that's where I had people approach me, you should run, and I said, I'm not putting my money in because I'm not. I lost it. I lost all that money before, and I said, God's got to do this. I can't, and I won't. And but we need to give people an option. So my wife and I talked about it. We prayed about it. So I decided we'll go ahead and do it. Well, lo and behold, they gave me a problem about my residency, and I've been living in my house in South Anchorage for about 4 years now, and so I had to go through this whole rigmarole to actually get qualified, to vote. But as you see, it worked out. So but so basically, I don't like what's going on. As you see foolishness, you see corrupt stuff, you see just downright low life stuff going on in Juneau, and it's like, this is where they all do it. It's like undercover, and we don't have any control over it because the majority of Alaskans live far away and can't afford to go down there to actually see what these guys are doing and voice your opinion. So that too, not only to give people an option, but also to give them a better option, because I'm not about the typical getting into office to promote myself. I'm not.
So in other words, you don't have no hidden agenda that
I don't have a hidden agenda.
When we get there.
I can be honest with you. I'll do a self-imposed term limit, because everybody should step up and get this opportunity to serve the state or the government wherever they live, And I can't see. It's the same thing in the federal government. People blaming one man who's only been in office for less than 4 years for all the problems the United States is having, but yet the people who made the policy have been embedded there for 20, 30, 40 years, and nobody questions what they're doing. So this is, we need term limits in Congress too. We need term limits all across the board. And so I would do a self-imposed, imposed term limit to get in, do what I can, and if I can't do anything, then I get out, because I'm not doing anybody any good. I'm not in it for myself. I'm not in it for the money, but unfortunately,
many of them are.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you kind of touched upon it, but it didn't quite come out and say it. We've got a problem in Juneau, and it's the biggest problem that I see that happens in Juneau, and is what has created the budgets that continuously keep growing year after year after year. This year is no exception. I mean, we got a $4.9 billion budget is what they claim that they have passed. King Economics came out with an article here in the last couple of days. I got a chance, it says posted up on my site. It says that we're estimated to be at $5.5 billion is what the actual state and capital spending, and not the capital, but just the state spending on the budget is. And they think that this is, if I go by what Senator Kathy Giesel has had to say out there, or Senator Natasha von Imhof, when it comes to the budget, we're at the lowest budget that we've seen in 15 years. Yet, you go and actually look at the numbers compared to 15 years ago to current. To have these interviews, the binding caucus is what I put them as. I rally on it on an almost daily basis. I've got to have at least one post out there a day. If you were to make it in, I'm going to pretend that I'm the president of the Senate, and let you chair voices. I will give you the front. You have set aside. But when it comes to the final votes, are going to be a yes vote, no matter what is it. Will you sign my agreement?
No. To get out of my office. And not there to be comfortable. I'm not there to appease the establishment. I'm there to. A lot of the things that get passed are not what the people want. We can't be there to see it. We see it on the gavel, Alaska, and all that stuff. We can't vocalize.
Unless you go to the actual specific channel,
yeah,
you don't get to know what is going on down there or be rich.
Exactly.
Fly there and lobby them.
Exactly. So you have. I don't know how many nights of testimony people there emphatically saying we do not want this. And he's still trying to. Okay, that's not the type of politician, because he's got an agenda. He's got, I guess he wants to go to legacy. I don't know what the heck he wants to do. But he's definitely not representing the people, because the people have spoken. We do not want this. All right. And that's what we spoke when we spoke when we elected Governor Dunleavy, okay? And this is the man we wanted in, and we trust him with the budget. He made cuts, and what did the legislature do?
Oh,
they slashed everything that he did, right, and took it all back.
Special interest out there, because basically 1% of their budget was to be cut all of a sudden got up on their soapboxes, formed the Recall Dunleavy group.
Yeah.
You got Alaska AFL-CIO Vince Petrami, who is the head of them, financing this recall because he does not want their budgets cut one penny. And we can't just lay it all on the unions neither. We've got NEA of Alaska jumped in, Siri Corporation jumped in. The list is endless. I've got close to 100 different corporations and school-related functions and nonprofits that have all jumped on board and are supporting it.
Yeah.
And it's unbelievable. We're looking for representation for us, the people. I mean, you guys are our servants, right?
Yeah. Well, to my knowledge, yeah. I mean, we're not there to serve ourselves. You know, and when you, you know, and I know that, you know, a lot of people, I don't want to talk bad about this person and do all this other stuff, you know. But when who's the guy that passed away? It was Chris Birch. And
Birch and
then they
Gary Knopp that just recently
he
passed.
just recently passed, and would like to see who's going to be put in his place. That's going to be interesting to watch. But to see Laddie Shaw get shafted the way he did, all right, because he should have been the man for that job.
He should have, yeah.
Right, but Josh Revac got put in that position, and from the Josh Revac I met in the last election when he got elected, is totally, and Josh is a great guy. I'm not gonna, you know, I don't know what the back deal was, all right, but he turned coat, all right, just like a lot of guys have done.
It was obvious. I mean, when he got voted into the House, he was what he ran on his platform. That is what he was doing when he got into the House.
Yeah.
When he was offered the seat and he sat into the closed doors meetings with those that were to vote for him, they basically gave him the same ultimatum that they gave Laddie, which Laddie rejected.
Yeah.
It was you join our binding caucus, you sell your constituents' votes to us.
Yeah.
When we tell you you're to vote this way, you're going to do that. And like we were just talking at the very beginning here, what did they give them? Well, prime committees that were stripped away from legislators that have seniority over him, been there. I mean, he's a freshman.
Yeah.
It was his first couple of years in office, and here he is getting handed committees that these senior legislators were in charge of because they would not be a part of this binding caucus.
Yeah, it needs to go. I would not be a part of it, regardless of what party's in charge, because I have my thoughts about the Republican Party. We may get into a little later. I don't know, but we need to. I'm not representing the party. All right, when I go into Juneau, and yeah, I'll speak it forth. When I get there, I'm not representing the party. I'm representing you, the people of District L, and then beyond that, the people of Alaska, because we're all in this together. I mean, we hear this, you know. I don't know if you've ever been Fred Meyer, you know, and about wearing your mask, and then all of a sudden, all these voices on the commercial says we're all in this together, you know, and realistically, yes, we are, because what I do is going to affect the rest of Anchorage. In turn, then Anchorage is going to affect the rest of Alaska. Okay, so if I don't represent you, then we continually our red state is continually getting
Smaller.
It's getting smaller, and it's getting more purple. It's getting purple, and before you know it, it's going to be blue. And I don't want that to happen. I don't know about you, but I don't want that to happen.
Born and raised Alaskan, and I got into what I do here for one reason. I want the state I grew up with, not the state that I live in now.
Yeah.
And I mean, I grew up that this was a land of opportunity. This is whatever you worked your butt off for was your oyster to receive that pearl from, because you earned it by doing the hard work and putting it forth. And anymore, it seems like, well, what's the point of working hard anymore when I can just kick back at home and collect all of this money to do absolutely nothing?
And the state's giving it all to me. Yeah, might as well.
The state's paying for it.
Oh yeah.
I mean, we got too many areas in Alaska that is occurring.
So no binding caucus. I will not participate. I'll do everything to fight it. So.
And I think you pretty much answered the question, but I'm going to ask it anyways. let's say it is the conservative Republican Party that is in control, would you still be not a part of the binding caucus?
Depends on if what they're voting on or what they're trying to pass is it matches what my constituents want. If the constituents don't want that, then no. Just because it's a party line issue, and being that District L is historically a red district, but it's we have actually representatives as far as the two that we have, at least the one in District 24, the state rep, and of course our senator is more of a rhino. They're both more rhinos than anything, and the same in District 23. I mean, there's a move towards the Democratic part, and then also at the same time you're looking at our assembly. The Anchorage Assembly is run. We have a Democrat and an independent, but the independent is more to the left than what he is to the right. So.
Do we have an independent party here anymore?
No, but he ran under an independent, I believe, or non-declared or whatever it was.
The reason why I throw that out there is we've got the Supreme Court of Alaska that determined that the independent party is now the Democrat Party, because they're co-funding each other and advertising for each other now. I mean, I don't see the Republicans out there advertising for the independents. I don't see them advertising for Democrats.
Yeah, you see, with the reason these people are getting elected is they're good at the lip service. They're good at it, and that's just like any talking head you see in a political realm. They're going to hit on the things that you want to hear. We're going to do this and we're going to do that and we're going to do that, and then once they get in there, it has nothing to do with what I told you I was going to do. It's about me getting to the next level of authority or whatever power, whatever I'm looking for, and I have no idea what my opponent, what her aspirations are, as far as politically, but.
I could fill you in on the details on that. I mean,
you probably know more because I don't know a whole lot about her as far as I know Rasmussen Foundation, that kind of things. I've met her once.
She came out last year several times, and I believe once this year she went out to the Eagle River Chamber, and another one that was in Anchorage, and she begins out her speech is my grandfather started up the Rasmussen Foundation. Then she goes directly into how the PFD is meant to keep their organizations well-funded, ski trails, everything else other than what the platform was there for. Mm-hmm. The CARES Act money, as she has openly stated more than once, the Rasmussen Foundation is financially benefiting from this. Need to make sure they stay well funded throughout this entire process. Well, it's her family that owns the Rasmussen Foundation.
Yeah.
She sits on all the finance chairs in the Senate. You can watch video after video that I have live streamed on Facebook there that has her sitting there as the chair, determining where our state's budget's money is going to be spent, making sure that the lion's share goes to the special interest organizations that they have out there. So that's just a brief rundown of my own personal opinion of who your candidate you're running against right now.
Yeah, and she's also on the board of Rasmussen Foundation, which to me is a conflict of interest. If you're, I wouldn't. I mean, I noticed that Hillary and Bill Clinton, both of them were on the board of the Clinton Foundation, but when they were in political office, they both stepped down from those positions because of the conflict of interest. But we have leaders, and I don't want to call them leaders. They're politicians in Alaska and in Anchorage that are so ballsy to not, to like just defy that. I can do this because I'm in this position. And granted, she may be, maybe she recuses herself from different things that have to do with the Rasmussen Foundation.
Well,
it's not.
I'll throw it right out there. No, she has never done that. The only before they take a vote is they declare, I have a conflict of interest here on this vote because of my association with blah blah, whoever it may be. and then everybody that's sitting in that room, which
they don't have a problem with it.
We'll has absolutely no problem with it. Oh yeah, go ahead and vote anyways.
Yeah. Well, it's kind of like, since me being a pastor and knowing about the Bible and following the teachings of Jesus, the Bible is clear to stay away from sin and even the appearance of evil. All right. So if just the appearance of me having a conflict of interest like that is enough for me to recuse myself from any of it, I'm going to abstain, or even step away from this position as a board member or whatever it is. She's family. She's going to go right back to it if she ever gets out of politics. I mean, it's not like she's going to lose that job. So, that's my opinion on that. So, and as far as political aspirations, I don't know where she's, what she's gotten there, but I can almost guarantee you that most everybody getting into the political realm has higher aspirations than just to do your job and then go back home and do what you're doing before. And I can be honest with you, that's my intentions. If God opens a door to do something else after this, once this term is over, or 2 terms, I wouldn't go more than 2 terms. What is the governor? The governor gets 2. It's 4 years.
2, yep.
I would, and that's what a senator is here. So 4 years. So 8 years is a good amount of time to do some good work.
It is.
And then after that, then you give somebody else a chance, and then because things change, the dynamics of everything change, you see. But if you look at our example in Washington, we haven't. I mean, that embedded ideology has stayed the same, And we've been making these policies, and now today we're reaping the benefits of what all of these people that have been in office for the last 30 or 40 years are doing, but yet it's one man that's only been there for 4 years that's caused all the trouble. Yeah. So and the same thing, Dunleavy, it's his fault why
our states fiscally unable to do.
Dude, 2 years he freaking ruined us. Oh my gosh, we need to recall him. I mean.
Oh hell, he hadn't even been in office 4 months when the recall got started. All he did was issue the here's my first budget for the 2019-2020 year.
Oh, malfeasance. I mean, you cry it. So you give these guys, and you see it. I mean, the conservative side of things is under attack. You know it. You see it online. I see it. Whenever I post stuff, and it's just an immediate.
I also see it. Just on a side note, I see it in my feeds too. Mm-hmm. And I say it as in I'll share something today, and what I would expect to get 1,000, 2,000, maybe 10,000 people to that particular thing to have reached, only goes to 100 people.
Yeah.
And I'm looking at that going, now wait a minute, what's the problem with this? Because it came from this certain publication.
Yeah.
It didn't go nowhere. I'll share the exact same information from PBS, and all of a sudden, it's reached 10,000 people.
Oh yeah.
And I see that with my different feeds that I have out there, especially from my own personal website for Politidic. Mm-hmm. I'll share something directly from Politidic. It'll go absolutely nowhere. It appears by the numbers I'm seeing. But if I do it as a Facebook post that didn't come from my website, all of a sudden that same post goes phenomenal. It takes off. It's everywhere.
Oh yeah.
And the bias out there is our media is working hard behind the scenes to control it. I see it every election season. I'll watch my reach go from 50,000 to 100,000 people a month, and then I'll watch that reach go down to 20,000 people for an entire month, going, well, what happened to my feeds? What happened to where was my reach during this period of time?
Oh yeah, and we don't think we're being controlled by that. I mean, the algorithms are a hell of a thing, man. I mean, they don't promote the truth. It promotes the agenda. So I can remember, dude, back in 10 years ago when my son was in middle school, and the global warming, it was climate. Now it's climate change. It was global warming back then. there was tons of information from scientists refuting global warming, that that it's a natural occurrence and all this other stuff. And now if you look for it, if you have the time to search 150 pages into Google, you might find something. All right. Other than that, you're going to find out, the truth, that it's their truth, that it's a real thing. And if you don't believe, you can't do it anymore. And it's like, well, where did all this stuff go to? I know it's still on the internet because when it gets on the internet, it doesn't go away.
It's there forever.
Yeah.
Yes. Just finding the site that actually has it's the hard part.
Exactly. So, so one of these days, maybe I'll just sit 24 hours and just see how many pages deep I can go and see if I can find something, But yeah, the algorithms, dude.
I'll throw just one out there just because it's of my own research study on it. We got the illegal immigration problem that we have going on in the United States, and I was curious, what does Alaska report about illegal immigration? And I finally found myself an article. It came from 2014, and this was at the beginning before Trump ever took office. Mm-hmm. So he was still a candidate. There was information out there, but it was very sporadic and very, you had to really search for it, but not going in 100 pages deep before you finally found it. It was in my first 4 or 5.
Yeah.
I recently came back, tried to go and find that exact same article. It doesn't exist no more.
Yeah,
I started listing out the name news media companies here in Alaska, adding them into my query for my search. Still would not pull up the articles.
Yeah.
It's like, well, what happened to it? I mean, it told the actual numbers of how many reported illegal immigrants that we had living in Alaska.
Yeah.
But those numbers are nowhere to be found now.
Cool. Yeah, I wonder why, Yeah, I've come to the point to where if a video or if I see an article, I'll screenshot it. I won't save the page, screenshot it or save the video. I got tons of videos since all this COVID stuff's been going on, saved because it goes away within a day or two. If it doesn't line up with the, with the narrative, then it goes away. And yeah, so.
I can't resist myself, George Floyd. Mm-hmm. Recently, the leaked Daily Mail got a hold of the leaked body cam footage of what was going on there. And from all appearances that I have going on, and there's a reason why the judge refused to release that body cam footage from the time that he was sitting up against the wall, which they openly showed. They had it on 60 Minutes. To the point of where you see the police officer's knee on his neck. Now, in no way am I condoning what the police officer did, by far. But that missing footage that the Daily Mail came out and showed paints a completely different picture than
sure
this
does.
I can't breathe movement is wanting us all to believe that happened there. My own personal opinion, this is another hands up, don't shoot, that was blown completely out of proportions, and the truth doesn't match the fiction that's being spread out there.
No, it's not. When all this actually came to pass, or actually when it happened, it infuriated me when I saw that this man, saw the video and the knee and everything. And usually when I see stuff like that, I'm like, you got to wait till all the evidence comes out, because as like everything that's happened before that, when all the evidence came out, it's not what we're shown. It's something
Covington
different.
Kid's a good example of that.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So I made a post. Have you ever, you know who Steven Crowder is?
Yes.
Yeah, he does this thing called.
What he does is sit down at a table and prove me wrong.
Yeah, it's like coffee cups are green, change my mind, that type of thing. So change my mind. So my point was that George Floyd and COVID's are a hoax. Change my mind. So change it. And a lot of people took offense to that. Even my own son did, and I was labeled a racist and everything else. But my point is, and I want to make this clear because I've never gotten a chance to do this, because people that interviewed me and talked to me about this never put this part out there. How am I, and you think about this too, how am I supposed to trust a media that continually feeds me lies? That they're giving me this okay, here's this video. How do I know that this video was not set up? How do I know that? Knowing the track record of the media, okay? The Russian collusion, the impeachment, all of that stuff that's happened in the past 4 years, and even before that. You know, there was, I believe it was something going on in the Middle East where there was some gunfire, and the gunfire they actually showed was actually a shooting range somewhere. You know, and it made it look like, you know, so how do you know what I have no idea that George Floyd ever existed other than what the media is showing me.
Yes.
I didn't see his body in the coffin, right? Which is kind of weird to me because when Martin Luther King passed away, they had cameras in there that actually, there's his dead body, and it was proof he's dead. When Elvis died, there's the dead body, all right? Everybody's got a freaking cell phone. Or a GoPro? If somebody's walking past the casket and it's open and there's a body in there, I would have flipped a picture off in there just to have it. Oh, it's morbid, you can't do that. Why not? There's not one picture. You know how viral that thing would have gone if somebody would have had a picture out there? Not one. Is the internet that, you know, tight knit that kind of stuff doesn't get out? No, it does get out, and then it can be quelled. And so that's my point. How do I? And nobody's never proven to me that it's not a hoax, because look at what happened within a 24-hour period of that happening. Riots broke out.
Yes.
All right. How do you mobilize people that quick? An army can't do that. They couldn't do that with Benghazi. All right. They couldn't get there that quick and do what they did. Right. So unless it's
in less than 24 hours, the "I Can't Breathe" T-shirts are everywhere.
Exactly. So you can't tell me it wasn't planned out some kind of way. Did he die? Was he real? I don't know. I don't know at this point because I don't know what to believe, because there's so much misinformation on the internet, and just seeing the repercussions of what happened makes me wonder if it wasn't set up. And that's my point on it, you know. And if I'm proven wrong, then I will apologize for that, you know, that this man actually, you know, said this but I'm you know, I just wanted to make that clear, that how can I trust the media? How can I? You know,
it's too difficult. I mean, another good example of that would be the riots and protesting and the looting and the violence and all of that that's going on down there in the lower 48. And the media, like you're describing, the mainstream media out there is saying these are peaceful protests.
Yeah.
They show up after all the violence is over during the daytime when there's nobody really standing around out there, and say, look at how peaceful these people are. But the minute it starts to get dark, their cameras get turned off. Anything that goes on with the violence is not shown to the rest of the world, saying, see, it was peaceful protests, and they were tear gassing these peaceful protesters that are throwing Molotov cocktails, shooting pyrotechnics at the...
These big bad, you know, federal officers come out and they bully them around and this and that, and you know, we're just in a time right now. We're seeing a change, man, and I don't like what I'm seeing. I really don't. And we can, you know, reel this back in. You know, we kind of don't see this on that scale here in Alaska. You know, but we've seen it. We're seeing it, you know, trying to be portrayed. You know, it's almost like our mayor in Anchorage is pushing us to the brink to do something. You know, he's continually like taking little freedoms away and shutting businesses down. And what I have a problem with is that the state is not stepping in to do anything. I'm not talking about the governor. The governor has made his mandates, and you, as well as I do, know that that out here in the valley, it's totally different. We're in a restaurant. I mean, no mask, no nothing. I mean, it's normal.
I'm watching people walk in and out right now. Not a single person has a mask.
Yeah, it's normal. But Anchorage is a totally different beast. We just had my son had a youth conference at the church over here, and he brought in a special speaker from Georgia. Now, Georgia, he doesn't live in Atlanta. He lives far enough away from Atlanta where all that craziness isn't going on. But he came here, and they brought him to Anchorage to visit some stuff. And he had a mask on, but he had the mask here, right? And he was treated rudely by people in the stores. Sir, you need to put your mask up, and this and that. And it really left a bad taste. Now, Alaska's not like that. At least the Alaska that I know is not like that. Why are we, allowing this to go on? We're friendly people, but this has turned us on one another. And
it has. I was in a holiday out here in the valley, and they got a Subway inside of it. Mm-hmm. And the employee behind in the Subway didn't have a mask on. And this lady came in, and she was clearly from Anchorage from the beginning of the conversation as it started. And she starts demanding that he put his mask on. And he looks at her and says, well, our employer out here doesn't require us to wear one unless we want to wear a mask. Mm-hmm. And she goes, well, I want your name. I want his phone number. I am going to call him right now, and I'm going to get you fired. And she became, as they classify now, a Karen.
Yeah.
And instantly started going after this guy, and she's just ranting and raving at him. And after about a minute or two of standing there, I had enough. I couldn't take it anymore. I felt sorry for this kid. He really did remind me of the Covington kid, because he stood there the entire time and just smiled and took what was being thrown at him. And so I laid into her and I said, first off, I can tell you're from Anchorage. Second off, we don't have a dictator for a mayor out here that your mayor has no right to give any authority to tell us what we can and can't do out here in the valley. Quit trying to bring your policies, your beliefs, and whatever else you may have involved with you out to our area. It's not appreciated nor welcomed. If he's a human being, you need to treat him like a human being. You don't treat him like he's you've got to do what I tell you to do, or else. That's not how you treat your fellow Alaskan.
Yeah.
I wear a mask when it's appropriate, and I don't wear a mask. Yeah. If I'm out here in the valley, you'll probably never see me with a mask on. Yeah. I go to Anchorage, if I want to enter into this building and they have a you cannot, without period, no mask on, if I want to go in there bad enough, I put my mask on so that I can go conduct my business that I need to do inside of their organization. But if I have a choice.
Once you get in there, chances are, if you take it off, nobody says anything to you. The only people that say anything are other Alaskans. It's not the employees. They don't want to have that confrontation, man. They don't make enough money to do that. It's like if you don't. We went into my wife and I don't wear one. When I go in, and that's just here, Valley. I don't care where it is. I don't wear one. Because there's medical exemptions where you don't have to wear one. Yep. And my medical exemption is I don't have to reveal that to anybody. But I have problems breathing when a mask is on there, and then being involved in claustrophobic, all of the kind of things that people deal with. So when you say all I've said is that I just can't wear one, and all the time people just that's it. They're not going to argue over that, and also I've seen people do what you've done, just have the mask on just to get in, and once they get in, it comes off, and then nobody says anything, and that's more rampant than anything, we're seeing the division, because we see the racial divide, we see the left, the right divide, we see the straight gay divide, we see all of these just divisions, people pitting, on the sides. And the Bible speaks of this in the last days. There's going to be separation of the sheep and the goats, and we see it happening, if we could just realize that even the people on the left-hand side, if they could see that it's not about us. The fight isn't between us. It's about what they're doing, the government, all right, imposing all of these things on us, causing division, because it's almost like they're, you know, I feel like who was it, the Austin Powers movie with the bald guy who was the evil guy.
Goldfinger.
Yeah, so he's sitting back and he's just, you know, he's watching, you know, and it's just working right into my plan. And all the people are just, you know, they'll kill one another. We don't have to, you know, because they're against one another. And this is exactly, we're falling right into it. If we could see that it's not you against me, it's us against them, you know, but how do you
it's impossible.
Yeah.
I mean, good example, we've got just throw the parties out there. We've got the Republicans, we've got the Democrats. The Republican, a true conservative Republican, has the values that we are all one people. Your rights are no more important than what my rights are.
Yeah.
And as long as your rights or my rights don't infringe upon each other's rights, everything should be hunky-dory. And that, to me, that's what I consider the conservative party to be.
Yeah.
And then you got the Democrat party that says, oh, wait a minute, this person's rights are more important than your rights. We're going to make sure we keep them divided.
Yeah.
This next group's rights are now more important than your rights. We're going to make sure they stay divided. So here we've got Asians, we've got black people, we've got white people, we've got all these different races that are pitted against each other.
Yeah.
Because the Democrats keep saying that they have more rights than what the next group has. I mean, we've got the 1% of the population, or the 2% now of the LGBTQ community out there, that they have more rights now than a black person has. I mean, I hate to put it that way, but, you know, they want to keep dividing us by race, by how we think, who we are. I mean, if you want to be a potato, by all means, you're a potato. Just don't make that affect my ability and my rights to continue my life on a normal daily basis. The minute that I have to agree with you, though, that you're a potato, and I don't, I have a problem with that.
Yeah, you're telling me how to believe and how to think, you know, and you can't do that to a person. You cannot legislate thought. You know, you cannot legislate beliefs, and that's it seems like that's what they're trying to do. And since you brought up the Democrat Republic thing, we can, you know, we can get back on that. The Republican Party, in my belief, and that the reason we have the problems we have here in Alaska is, I think, our leadership in the Republican Party, and we can, you know, we can stem that back, you know, just like we can in Washington D.C. The people embedded, right? Because when I got involved in politics, there's a echelon of people, right, that are pretty much, here's the names, and this is I'm not going to mention the names of the people. You know who they are probably already. You know, they're
Kings and queens.
Kings and queens, exactly. You know, and it's like we talked about somebody earlier that a friend of mine said, hey, this lady doesn't like what you're saying, and I was like, well, who is this lady, and why should I care what she says about me? Because that's the whole thing, is that as a Republican, the Republican platform lines up mostly to my belief system. All right, because if it didn't, then I'd be a Democrat. All right, I'm probably about this close to being a libertarian. There's only maybe one or two issues that the Libertarian Party has that I don't agree with.
I got challenged on that same issue here the other day. You must be a Republican. And I said, no, I'm not. What makes you assume that? Well, you're calling other Republicans rhinos. And I'm going, well, for all you know, I'm a Republican, I'm a Libertarian. Hell, I could be even a Democrat because I value some of their views too.
Sure, exactly.
Trying to label me as one party or the other doesn't make who I am and where my political values lie.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we have there's a thing, a funny thing that both the parties have. It's called a platform, and a platform is and if you think of the word platform, what does a platform do? A platform is an area that you stand grounded on.
Yeah.
Right? You stand on it, and you stand on a platform, and you say what you want to say. This is a platform right now on social media that we have. They have the ability to speak what we believe and what we want people to hear. So that's what the platform is. This is what we stand on. The platform is there's certain beliefs that we're going to stand by, that this platform is going to hold us up on, because there's a foundation, basically, right? So you have these belief system that the platform is made of. So we stand on that, and as a Republican, the Republican platform is my foundation. This is what I stand on because it's what I believe. That's why I'm a Republican, okay? So when I'm a Republican, I abide by all these platform, these ideas of what the platform stands for, pro-life, Second Amendment, freedom of speech, all this stuff, right? And I don't go against that because this is my passion, all right? And I look at it this way, that I'm a ordained minister with the Assemblies of God. The Assemblies of God has 16 fundamental truths, all right, that I have to abide by. The deity of Christ, the end days, the baptism in the Holy Spirit, the initial evidence of speaking in tongues. I mean, there's 16 of them that I agree with the Assemblies of God, and in turn, I get my credentials when I line up. If I take one of those fundamental truths and don't agree with it, then they take my credentials away, all right, because I don't agree with that anymore. You see, we don't have that in the Republican Party. We don't have any accountability. That people who, okay, so we're pro-life, all right, but 12 weeks is 12 weeks is viable, after 12 weeks, or whatever it is, Right. No, conception, all right? So this is my stance on it. So if you go against those platform rules, the platform falls and you fall off of it. So it has no bearing on anything, right? So why even have one if you're not going to hold people accountable to it? And that's what we have a problem with our party in Alaska today, is that we've allowed, the party has backed too many people that don't stand for this platform, and that's why we're where we're at right now.
I'll give it to the Democrat Party when it comes right down to it. We know where they stand at.
Sure.
They don't waver. Their entire platform is how socialistic can we make our programs to help out the what they classify the majority of the people for
Mm-hmm.
their welfare and benefit, but they never and they don't waver about how they're going to come up with that money. They're more than happy to let you know that, we're going to take it directly out of your pocket to accomplish our goals.
Yeah.
And they don't waver from that. But you get to the Republican Party, and where does the party stand anymore? I don't see any convictions there whatsoever. I see it in our own election cycle happening right now.
Mm-hmm.
I have covered it myself.
Yeah.
We're more than happy to turn a blind eye to our own corruption.
Yeah.
They don't care that, we got to protect this person because did you see who's running against them?
Yeah.
Oh my God! The kings and queens makers that are out there behind the scenes are working adamantly in all districts. Yours especially.
Yeah.
I know right now the who you are running up against. There's an opposition out there that's working behind the scenes trying to make sure you don't make it past the August primaries.
Yeah.
They want to see you eliminated because they see you as a threat. You can't be controlled.
Mm-hmm.
You're not going to join the binding caucus. You've already admitted that more than once publicly and here today.
Yeah.
And then you've got the Democrat Party that says, well, I am going to join the binding caucus. I am a part of that binding caucus.
Yeah.
I am more than willing to sell my constituents' voices and votes out to be in this binding
Mm-hmm.
caucus. And because you yourself do not agree with that platform, they want to say, well, the kings and queens maker doing their magical work behind the scenes that gets the legislators elected here in our state are saying, well, he's not a part of the agenda. So we've got to make sure we do everything we can politically, whether that be going through news media. Mm-hmm. I've seen in several articles written about you here recently, coming from alt news media sites out there that are trying to tear down your platform and your record, mm-hmm. Because you're unwavering in that decision, trying to do their utmost to protect mm-hmm. that same incumbent that got our state in this disaster in the first place. It's appalling to watch what's going on out there.
It doesn't make any sense, and you put yourself up for scrutiny when you put yourself in the public eye like this, And you asked, what's happened to the party, and I can tell you flat out, the platform has collapsed. We don't have a platform anymore. There's nothing. We're standing on sinking ground right now, and that's why we're losing. Because we're not standing for anything. We're just falling for anything that comes along, just so we can have the party in control. When the whole thing is not about the party. All right, it's not about the party; it's about the people. All right, and regardless, because when in District L, there's Democrats just well as there is Republicans. Yep. I'm going to represent them too. All right, and I'm going to do my best to represent them. And I want to reach out to them to a point. I'm not going to cower down my own value system to go against something that's can't and compromise in that area. But at the same time, I want to be able to respect and there's Republicans that think liberally too. Even though they have an R behind their name, they still have some liberal. They're more center right or whatever. And you have to be able to relate to everybody. Well,
that's the reason why we have literally jungle elections. For the final part, where we don't have jungle primaries, because that is to make sure that we have an equal, supposedly, ability to be able to have representation from both sides of the issues being presented to everybody. And the independent party, which was supposed to be basically the person that sat in the middle between the Republicans and the Democrats, thanks to Alaska's Supreme Court, now are Democrats.
Oh, independent.
I can't call. I have a really hard time calling them independents anymore. Democrat independent would probably be a more accurate name.
Yeah.
So now you no longer have the middle of the road party out there anymore here in Alaska. You've got the Democrats, the Democrat independents, and then you have what they want to call the Republicans. We've got proven here in 2018 that the Republican Party doesn't exist here in Alaska. We might as well not even count them as negotiable. Yeah. They had the majority in the Senate. They had the majority in the House. And both of them handed that control directly over to the Democrats.
Go figure, man.
So where is the Republican Party here in our state? I have a hard time seeing it.
Well, that's what I was saying. That has to be addressed. The Republican Party leadership in the Republican Party has to be addressed, and we have to make a change. And if we don't, then like I said earlier, that this state will continually, gradually it'll be purple, and then a deeper purple, and before you know it, it's going to be blue, and then we're totally as a party at that point, and then to be honest with you, I don't want to be here if this state turns blue totally. It's just not worth my while, man. So,
so we got here. Speaking of jungle primaries, and I want to throw it out there. We got ballot measure number. Let's see, that's prop number 2, where ranked choice voting is being addressed here, and we as Alaskans get to vote on it here in November to decide whether or not we want to have ranked choice voting.
Jungle primary, whatever
jungle
it is.
Primaries, turn our primaries into actual jungle election like our general election is.
Yeah.
Where you can vote for any party at that point.
Yeah.
But the biggest difference between ranked choice voting and jungle voting is you're now going to rank every candidate from who you want to win from number 1 to number 10. If let's say there's 10 people running for that position.
Yeah.
So number 1 being your top choice, number 10 being your bottom choice. I did a kind of what you classify as a mock election here the other day on my site, and it was on the 2018 race between Dunleavy and other candidates that were running in that election. Same dynamics, boiled it down to just 100 voters though, for simplicity. Governor Dunleavy, who won at 51.4% that year, he's now only got 43% in my mock race. Oh. Begich was, of course, the second highest total. He was sitting somewhere around 32, 33%. Then he had Tolan and Walker, who took the final 25% of the vote. Walker being the lowest, his votes got thrown out. Their second picks who voted for Walker now got tallied up. One went to Tolan, the majority went to Begich, and then Governor Dunleavy also went up in the ranks where he was like 47, and then Begich was sitting at 42, and Tolan was now at 15 votes, or 15% of the vote, with the one that he got from Walker. Tolan being the last one that was in the race. Their third pick now that voted for Tolan now got to be chosen out of that list. And lo and behold, Begich won by 51%. Governor Dunleavy lost by, and only because he had 49% based on ranked choice voting.
Yeah.
What's your opinions about having ranked choice voting or jungle primaries? Yeah, I mean, calling it jungle primaries really doesn't give it justice.
Yeah.
Because that's not what it is.
Yeah, it's well, the first I actually heard of the term was jungle primary, and I'll just throw this out there, and then we can make a decision off of that. When you say the word jungle, what is the image that you conjure up in your head?
Wild, crazy, uncontrollable, really difficult to move through. Who knows what predator is lurking around the next corner? That's what comes to mind when I think of jungle primary.
There you have it. That's what I think about it. I mean, you have a primary. You pick your best person with these guys. You pick your best person here. If you have a third party, Libertarian, Tea Party, I don't care what it is, pick your guy. And then promote the guy. But if you have a jungle primary, why even have a general? Because the person that wins that one is most probably going to win that general too. So what is the sense of doing both at that point? Because you're pitting it against, the sad thing about it is that we have a two-party system where we should have, a legitimate, 3, 4, 5 parties, right? Where people can, are actually, and it's not some Kanye West birthday party thing that he's, throwing out there like a clown or something. It's something legitimate, because back in 2008, when Obama won the first go around, I was living in Georgia, and the Tea Party started, that grassroots, and we did. I was still a Republican, but I went with that movement because they were making, making waves. And we had a tax day revolt, all right? And it was April 15th, and it was in downtown Atlanta, right there by the Capitol. Dude, I don't know if you've ever been to Atlanta, but the Capitol pretty much sits on this huge block, square, whatever. And the entire area around it was Fox News, Hannity, all these people were there. And I'd never seen anything like that before in my life. And I felt like, man, this is America, this is what it's all about, and we're making a statement, and then the next one was Can You Hear Me Now revolt, and it was a CNN headquarters is right there in Atlanta, and we went down there, and about 1,500 of us marched around CNN, hollering, we're making a stand and everything. Not one camera came out from CNN to even cover it, right? But there was a ton of people out there. And so that was a legitimate party coming up, And then if we had more of a choice, other than just Democrat and Republican, because we see, the forefathers didn't want this. They didn't want just a two-party system. They even spoke against it because of the problems that it would have. Because now you're seeing a complete divide, 50-50, and then how can you, but if you had a third, and a third, or a quarter, and a quarter, and a third, or whatever, however you divide it up, you have more of an option, and you have more ideas flowing out there.
People have to work harder together to get something resolved.
Exactly.
Not just
yeah.
We combine together. I mean, the House of Representatives down in D.C. is a good representation of that. Mm-hmm. Democrat control. They've all rallied around each other. Absolutely nothing that they are passing ever makes it past the Senate. The Grim Reaper. Mitch McConnell takes out his sickle and he chops it right in half and throws it into the trash can where their legislation that's coming out of the House belongs, because there isn't a group of individuals working together to try to craft something of a common cause.
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
one group, one mind think, one view, and
Yeah.
their view is the only thing that's going to happen. Who cares if the minority by about 50 people doesn't vote their way or have their same exact opinions? When the majority of the minority, and I mean the majority as in 100% of the time just about, rejects what the other body is putting out there, that should be a clear signal we've
Yeah.
got a problem. I mean, we got prime examples in history of that: 13th Amendment, 14th Amendment,
Yeah.
15th Amendment, and then I'll always throw out the one and I get in trouble for this picture I have out there for it. You got Obamacare. 13th Amendment, 15th Amendment, 14th Amendment, almost 100% Republican voted yes. Either Democrats voted not at all, was 100% against it, was a no, or there was only like a 20% on one of those two amendments that the Democrats even voted for. But then you get Obamacare, 100% virtually of Democrats voting for it, and not a single Republican did.
Yeah.
And I get called out saying, that's fake news, you're trying to bring old history. The parties switched in the 60s.
Yeah.
The great Southern switch of one Democrat and one Republican switching parties during that period of time. And,
Ideology switched or whatever it was. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I had someone throw me a video. It was yesterday, just because I had just recently reshared that picture of the amendments and stuff. And he was going, well, you're totally wrong. That's not the way. The parties of then is not the parties of now. And I'm going, well,
You're right, actually, but I mean, not in your way that you're saying it.
Yeah, and I'm going, the parties are still virtually kind of the same as what they were then they are now. The Republicans are still the party that is for the freedom of everybody and everybody.
Yeah, in that aspect, you're right, yeah.
And the Democrats are still all about control and
Yeah.
how they can keep us divided by race. There is no difference between what they're doing now and what they were doing then.
No, and it didn't change. It didn't change. I mean, because I grew up in the South. I grew up in New Orleans, and I grew up in a Democratic family, and I don't, I don't want to speak bad about my grandfather was a New Orleans police officer, but he was a very racist individual, and I loved him to death, and I honor him, but that's what he was taught, right? So I go back further than that, because where he came from, and growing up in that atmosphere, because my mom was a single child, all right. She was the sweetest person alive. She loved everybody. She didn't care what color you were. She didn't care if you had hair on your head or if you were whatever. She didn't care. She loved you. And that was my mentor, if you want to say. That was my, I looked at her because she raised me. Even though she was raised by my grandfather, she came out totally different. So here I am, our generation coming up, and the further you get from that, but it was Democrats. He was a staunch Democrat. She was a Democrat, right?
Yep.
And everyone prior to my grandfather was a Democrat, all right? Until I came along, and I was telling you about my conversion. I actually, even though my ideology didn't totally change until maybe 1989, when I registered to vote, when I made 18 in, 1981, it was right after the Reagan got elected in 80, all right? I registered to vote in 81. I was the first registered Republican in my family, all right? And to be honest with you, the only reason I did it, because I didn't want to be like my family. I wanted to be different. Lo and behold, I didn't realize that my ideology,
rebel.
yeah, exactly, that my ideology would be as strong as it is conservative Republican, and looking back on it, I'm like, I told you this earlier, when Ronald Reagan came through New Orleans for his campaign rallying and for the 1980 election, our high school band played at his rally, and I played the drums in the band. And I met him. I got to meet him, shake his hand. And had I known that I would be like shaking the hand of, in my mind, the greatest president outside of George Washington that's ever lived, and maybe Donald Trump. But had I known that, I would have maybe savored that moment a little bit more, But that's a highlight of my life. I look back that here, this man that I look up to so much, that changed the world the way he did, and the ideals that he stood for, and the values that he stood for, and he completely changed America. The 80s, for me, the 80s were like the best, man. I mean, if I could go back to the 80s today, I'd go like in a heartbeat.
Now that makes two of us.
Yeah, and because it was just fantastic.
I guess I'm guilty when I love Metallica.
Yeah.
And, I have just about every shirt in existence. I could go a good 3 or 4 weeks without never wearing the same shirt again.
Had I known, I'd have worn my AC/DC shirt, I didn't know, or my Van Halen shirt. But anyway, the parties. So back to the parties. They haven't changed. They didn't switch ideologies. It's a bunch of crap, and it's just a talking point to make themselves look good.
The only thing I'm going to validate for the switch, as they call it, in the 60s, Republicans began to realize that all the socialist programs out there and what it was going to do to our country if they continued to keep expanding them was going to destroy it. Yeah. And that was the big switch. The Republican parties moved away from supporting these socialist programs that were giving welfare and health care and all this other stuff out there for free. They began to back away from that part of the platform, and Democrats embraced it full bore at that point.
Yeah.
And that was the big switch. And in all honesty, that's the only thing I saw the switch was is Republicans said, hey, the path that we're going down, if we continue supporting this stuff, is what we're seeing now.
Yeah, we're seeing, and this is the thing that is not being addressed as far as the Black Lives Matters movement goes, and they are adamantly against the nuclear family. All right, I don't know if you know that about you probably already know that, but on their website that they're against that. It's a Marxist ideology, and if you look back at the civil rights movement, was fantastic. All right, Martin Luther King was one of my heroes. Okay, so what happened there? But the people that were passing those laws were a bunch of white guys. I mean, think about it, all right? And why were they passing it? Because they were a bunch of Democrats too, all right? So what they did was, and this, you can trace this back to 1964, all right? And even prior. When I was growing...
During Johnson's era and all of that, where we're going through 30 years of Democrat control to 1968. And then all of a sudden, because of Vietnam and that, people had enough of the Democrats and said, we might as well try Republicans for a change.
Yeah, and the welfare state steps in. They replace the breadwinner of the family, the black family, with the government, take dad out the picture. So already dealing with the nuclear family on that side, all right? So then in 1973, you have the abortion laws, and then the amount of black children killed in the womb, right, per capita is phenomenal. It's you have an entire.
If you were to look at the numbers today of what they're saying worldwide for the coronavirus deaths and compare that to how many people have been killed by abortions, abortion still outdoes it by almost 4 times.
It does. It does, and we've.
And that's in the same time frame too. That's not an entire year total. That's just during the same time frame that the deaths have been being recorded.
Oh yeah. And then you look at it, a concerted effort to break up, because the family is the most important structure that we have. All right, and you can't replace that with a community or whatever you want to replace it with. There's nothing like mom and dad and kids. Right, and that's all there is to it. Yeah, you may have grown up in a crappy household and your dad beat you or whatever. Maybe you grew up with just your mom. I don't know, but the statistics show that children that grow up in an intact family are more successful and more likely to make it in life and not go to jail and not do all these other things, right? So, but once you take that away, then you're reliant on what? You're relying on the government, and that can bring us full circle back down to what we do here in Alaska, all right? That the people want the state to take care of everything, right? The health care, the education system,
heating their homes,
heating the ferries. I mean, they want to pay for transportation to get here or there. We want the government to take care of all of that. Well, that's just feasibly impossible. There's a reason why there's a structure, the family structure, that dad works, mom watches the kids, and I'll probably be labeled a misogynist for saying that. That's fine. That's happened before, or a sexist or whatever you want to call it.
Just reverse the roles. Mom goes to work and dad stays home. This is the 21st century now, right?
My wife was active duty Air Force. I stayed home and homeschooled the kids. So yeah, we did that back in the 90s. You know, so it's not a. To me, it's the family was still intact, is what I'm saying. So you have that family intact, and then it's not the government's responsibility to take care of you. It's during this COVID crisis, it's not the government's responsibility to give me unemployment. It's the government's responsibility to make sure that I have the regulations are in place, that I have a job that I can go to so I can provide for my family. But they've taken that away from me. All right. So now it's almost like you're seeing on a larger scale this same thing that happened in the civil rights movement, where you're replacing the breadwinner with daddy government. And now people have been getting this $600 a week, or however long what it's been in unemployment. 40 million people, they don't want to go back to work. That's why they don't want to open up schools. Teachers don't want to go back to work. Making the money doing nothing.
I mean, think about all the rioting, the protesting that's going on out there. How are these people on every single day able to go do that? The big question is don't they have a job? Don't they have to make a living? Oh, hell no. Like you're describing, the government's paying them $600 a week.
Sure they are.
To get out there and protest.
Yeah, and is that's going to run out? I don't know if they're going to pass another one. They probably will. And then where's that going to come from? We'll just pull it out our butts like we did everything else, and then we can just watch the country slip further and further down the toilet, but we need to recognize that with this election cycle, that if we don't make a change, then it's going to get worse. So there are some things, and Governor Dunleavy had the right idea.
When he
the
came
things
out,
to cut.
guns blazing that first
Yeah, he
year.
did. He was slashing, dude, and
I was loving it. I'm going, finally, we've got a governor. We got rid of Walker. We've got Republicans in both the House and the Senate. We've got a governor that wants to deliver cuts to bring us fiscally back into stable environment again. And then
bam, binding caucus. Right there, bam, boom, it hits.
Recall Dunleavy, the other one, to just throw them right both in there.
Yeah,
And to see legislators openly, they don't all openly do it, but there are several of them that are openly promoting the recall.
Yeah.
They want it to happen.
Yep. Yeah, they are, and I want the guy to have a chance to do something. Crap, leave him alone and let him do it. Because here's my point. The same thing with Trump. If you don't think he's doing a good job, he'll fall flat on his face on his own. He don't need your help.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So just watch it happen, because it's actually more fun if you don't like the person, and it's more fun to watch them fall on their face from their own doing, as opposed to you tripping them, right? Because you can laugh at it even more.
Yes.
But instead we want to make them trip, because that takes the fun out of it for me. It's like, you watched Walker freaking, he dug his own grave. That was hilarious. You knew he wasn't going to get reelected.
Yeah, it didn't matter. Governor Brian, his Me Too moment didn't have if it wouldn't have happened, he still wouldn't have been elected.
No, there's no way. And then he dropped.
Yeah.
I mean, he did. I mean, that's how confident he was in winning again. You know, I mean, he knew it from the onset. And I can guarantee you, Berkowitz, if this was his first term, he wouldn't get. There's no way he'd get reelected with the stuff he's doing right now, especially the way he's handling this. You know, this COVID stuff. And so that's my point. You know, if Trump was doing anything wrong, you know, it comes back to bite you, man. I don't care what you do. You know, it's going to come back at you. And if you're doing something wrong, if you're not doing a good job, you're going to fall on your own. And then you see, I have a bad habit of laughing at people that trip and fall. We had quite a few years ago, my wife and I first got married. We lived in Colorado. Her first duty station was in Colorado Springs, Peterson Air Force Base, and we went skiing. And we're walking back to the car that afternoon, and there's kind of like a slant, icy and stuff going back down in the car. And I'm carrying, my skis, she's carrying hers or whatever. And I'm looking over here, just kind of like there's some cross-country skiers. That's a beautiful area, whatever. And I hear this, like that. And I turn around, and all I hear is, like this, right? And I look, and there's my wife. She's like flat on her back, right? And the skis everywhere. And I'll look at it. That's exactly what I did. I'm like falling down, laughing at her. And these guys had to come up and help her up because I lost my composure. I could not have, because I laugh at that, right? So back to that, if somebody's doing such a bad job in a political position, they're going to fall like that. And then you can laugh, you don't have to make them fall. They'll screw up on their own, but this recall Dunleavy stuff, it's like, why? Why you're wasting your time, you're wasting your money, If he's going to fall, he's going to fall.
I would give credits to the recall if they had legitimate reasons for a recall.
Absolutely.
But when the entire court case was based off about how they feel about our government officials, Governor Dunleavy, cutting the budget, not even just 1% of their budget, was unfounded, when this is what the man's elected to do. The man is elected to be our governor and run our state.
Yeah.
And put forth policy that is supposed to be for the betterment of all people that live here, not just this small minority. And our own Supreme Court and the middle courts and to all rule based upon feelings, allegations that are nothing more than feelings. We feel you don't have the right to cut our budget.
Yeah.
And to have it still continue forward. It's just appalling that this is what our government has turned into. I mean, even our legislators, the positions you're running for right now.
Yeah. He gets hit on the because he was wanting to get the PFD back and all these things, all his campaign things on, and they throw that back at him. Well, he reneged on his promises.
He didn't do it.
Yeah. Well, yeah, you know why? Because you didn't freaking let him. Exactly. Yes. Yeah. I mean, he tried to.
He can't pass the law or the statute that says here's our state and capital budget, and here's your permanent fund dividend. He can't go up to him and say, this is what it is, sign it off.
Yeah.
What I say, I'm your supreme ruler. You do it now. It works the other way. Our governor is the servant of Alaska and the servant of our legislators.
Checks and balances, man.
Because
that's what
if our legislators don't pass it, he can't approve it.
Yeah.
Only thing he can do is take whatever they give him and veto it.
Yeah. Yeah, and he never did get a chance to do it and got a bad rap on it. But
So let's take this in a slightly different circle here. Mm-hmm. You're going down to Juneau. You get elected. There's certain bills or certain things that we have out there that cost our state the most money out of all the different programs that we have out there. We've got early learning in K through 12 in the University of Alaska. For the moment, we'll focus on K through 12. In 2018, we had roughly a $1.24 billion budget was what they were paying at that point. Since then, here in 2020, they've increased the budget to $1.3 billion, a $60 million increase.
Yeah.
Legislators did this, yet our legislators are out there advertising, they've cut the budgets, we can't cut them anymore. We've cut all these budgets, but here's a $60 million increase. University of Alaska, land grant, trust fund babies. They're supposed to be able to take the land that they have, utilize it, develop it up if they want to, sell it off if they want to.
Yep.
But they're supposed to be paying their own bills. But they're a huge drain, $900 million in 2018. Here we are in 2020, thanks to a brilliantly negotiated deal that Governor Dunleavy had done with the president at the time of the university. Negotiated a $75 million reduction over 3 years.
Yeah.
They're currently in their second year, so that $900 million has started out at it is at $850 million now. One more year to go under the contract they have. Next year, when you're in office, it'll be $825 million that they'll spend on the University of Alaska. Your second year in office, though, it's right back into the legislators' control on whether or not we continue to keep cutting the university and forcing them to actually utilize their land grants and start making their own profits at what they do, or increase the budget and hand them more of money that they don't have. The coronavirus gave us kind of a reprieve here. That and something needs to be done, because our schools are talking about sending all of our students back to school virtually, not going back to the brick and mortar school, forcing parents to have to come up with daycare and all this other stuff, expenses out of their pocket that many of them can't afford to do, because most of them don't have a job, especially if they live in Anchorage. They don't have a job right now, because they got dictator mayors that are shutting down their businesses that they were employed by. I mean, mothers that are waitresses and fathers that are working for the construction company that is doing an office building that they're not allowed to be working inside of because it puts them indoors. And it goes against the mandates that they have. So here's these people, they no longer have jobs, and they're expected to virtually teach their children with no resources available to even be able to do that. Here, get online and start teaching your kids. $1.3 billion. My research, thanks to my own child now to research all the different schools that are around the state and determined which one fit her, and then sold me on it. Come to find out that this school does better than 90% of the brick and mortar schools for scholastic scores and graduation rates.
There you go.
So I agreed. Sure, go ahead and enroll. She's already several weeks into the program now, 2 weeks to be exact, and she's already completed 3 courses. The rate she's going, she'll be graduated by November.
Wow.
Get to stay home, and this is a year and a half in advance of when she actually should be allowed to graduate. Brick and mortar schools cost $15,000 a kid to go to school. Virtual classrooms only cost $5,000 a kid, and a kid can work as fast or as slow as they want to through the virtual classrooms. $650 million is approximately what it would cost. That is more than half of what we are currently spending for our brick and mortar schools. The complaints that they have out there is well, they're not going to have internet. Well, with that kind of a savings, at $650 million, over half of that's been saved. Nothing says they can't keep another $100 million thrown in there and just buy internet for everybody that's out there. Every student that's in school, you got free internet while you're in school. And then they say, well, what about the ones with learning disabilities that have there's no possible way they can learn in the brick and mortar schools? Well, take another $100 million of that, and some of that $650 million that is being used for virtual classrooms, and redivert it over for those students that can't do virtual, and move it into, say, leaving open 20% of the brick and mortar schools as home schools in each geographic region as a base camp for each single one. So if you have disabilities, here's a home school that you can go to be able to get that one-on-one that you need in that type of an environment. You're struggling in math, you need an extra tutor. Here's your home school that you can go to. Go get the extra tutoring you need on math. Don't have to worry about doing it 100% virtually online. If you get elected, you're going to have to be facing a huge budget crisis. The Senator Shower has already come out this year and declared we're $1.5 billion short from being able to pay for next year's budget when you go to Juneau in January. I wish this was a unique experience. We've had 4 years now of $1.5 billion shortfall, $1.3 billion shortfall, $1.6 billion shortfall. Year after year after year, ever since the expansion of Medicaid, we've had this shortfall that's guaranteed there no matter what. Mm-hmm. Where do you stand when it comes to K through 12 education, universities, and how to fund them? Mm-hmm. Do you got any thoughts? I mean, this is, we're trying to elect people to go back there and resolve these big money drains that we have on our budget and still provide top quality educations.
Yeah, I'll probably get in trouble for saying some of this stuff, but that's all right. I'm used to it. We'll start with early learning, Head Start, whatever you want to call it.
By the way, which is a 1960s program that got started under L.B. Johnson. I learned that one yesterday.
Yeah. It's a glorified babysitting service. That's all it is. Your most important time for your child to learn is that age. That's where they pick up values, belief systems when they're learning, when their mind is that way. The last thing you want to do is take them away from the family. And that goes back to what we said earlier, how the government, that's the goal, to break up the family. So the earlier they can get the kid in school for indoctrination, the better, because they're going to learn that. So to me, the early learning is a glorified babysitting service. And yes, they do promote what they want to, all right? The state, the government should not have to be responsible for paying that, all right? My tax dollars, I don't have kids that early anymore. They're grown, and I never did put them in early learning like that. We taught them ourselves.
Not mine neither. Just to throw it out there.
Yeah. So why should my tax dollars go to that, to somebody else? So there's a lot of questions there. The high school part of it, my kids in the early part of their lives, we did homeschool. As they got older, they went to some public school, went to Christian school. And my oldest twins, they graduated from homeschool, and my youngest son graduated from Christian school. And the problem I had with the homeschooling was that, like you said, there's $15,000 the state pays per child to be, right?
You could be a teacher right now, open up a private school, stick 10 students inside of your private school, and get paid $150,000 a year. Make it bank.
Yeah, exactly. But when we went through the homeschool services, we only got access to maybe $2,000 of that.
And you had to account for every penny.
I had to count, and then if we got any equipment, computers, anything crap like that, we had to give back when we disenrolled and came out. So let's say a total of, let's say 5,000, all right, that was given to me to do stuff. Where'd the other 10,000 go to? All right, so somebody's making bank off of that. All right, so that's, you think you are homeschooling your kid, but if I wanted to teach him like a Bible-based curriculum, I had to pay for that out of my pocket. The state wouldn't pay for that. So
free choice is thrown out the window.
Yeah, exactly. So as far as that, the high school part of it, we in Anchorage, let's say in Anchorage, for instance, I don't know how many exactly high schools we have, 6, maybe 8, I'm not sure. We have to look at the populations. Do we need that many high schools or schools or whatever to keep open? Can we not consolidate? Can we? Things to look at.
On the elementary school level, they can knock out 2 of the schools, 3 of the schools if you include Eagle River.
Yeah.
They could shut them completely down, shovel the students to different schools, and still not be overpopulated.
No, they're not at all. And I did sub work with ASD, so I've been in there. I've been in the schools. I've seen none of the classrooms were overpopulated. As far as elementary goes, we need to start, and what we need is school boards that are conservative and not liberal, and we saw that happen probably 20 years ago. You saw an infiltration.
1988 is when the big push began. By the time 1989 came around, the first laws were put into place, and that's when you can really see the gigantic fundamental change in our education system.
And we as far as the spending money, yes, there are things that we can do. Why are you funding a brand new school building in a village that has like 6 students? Here's
$1 million school.
Yeah,
for 6 people.
And they've been wanting to do virtual learning for a long time, and now all of a sudden that COVID's here. Oh, that's a good idea. Well, why wasn't it a good idea before when we were spending all this money to keep the school open and operating?
Actually, now that COVID's here, it's the exact opposite. We don't want to do it.
Yeah, you want to go. So I mean, it's dumb, man. Some of the stuff. Then if you go into
teachers want it, but they don't want it.
Yeah,
we've got to be in school. The kids will. That's where they learn. That's where they're getting their free meals from because they're not eating at home.
Yeah, exactly.
Have you noticed that OCS has no longer been taking children of Alaska in record numbers because we're no longer turning them in for you?
Yeah.
Those kind of things.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, there's, and then you got to look at the funding too, that, are you going to help the parent out or you're not? The teacher is, there's a lot of things. Personally, I don't like the public school. I don't like to call it indoctrination. I just assume they stay closed. But if they do stay closed, then the parents need help. All right, yes. Because they definitely
the
need
money
help
they're
with
not
that.
giving to the schools. Let's give it back to the parents so that they can educate their children.
So if you're not going to redistribute money somewhere else or not account for it in the budget, then they need to get it.
That's where when I throw out the homeschools out there, you got K through 12.
Yeah.
For regular school systems out there, I'll even throw early learning in there because of Head Start.
Yeah.
They're nothing more than a glorified daycare.
That's all it is.
That is free daycare for your children, while they try to provide a very, you gave the correct word that I like to use, a very indoctrinated education that is to get you all group thinking and into this one mentality.
Sure.
You're nothing more than a factory worker working a position from point A to point B.
Yeah.
And you do exactly what that position tells you through all the way through your education. And the minute you divert away from it, you're a rabble rouser.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Yeah. You're no longer a part of the system, which is where virtual learning comes in. It takes away from that indoctrination that they're doing.
Oh, yeah.
And it gives the child the ability to move beyond the normal education that they were getting.
Yeah.
They're no longer being bullied in school. They're no longer being told by teachers, I don't have enough time for you. You learn slower than Johnny does here. Johnny's supposed to be the average, but here's Martha at the other end of the scale, who's a superior student that would probably be from the television show Doogie Howser.
Yeah.
Another MD by the time she's 12 years old. And but they're in our school system. Martha is required to slow down to meet up with Johnny, and good old Bobby that's sitting down here at the bottom gets totally shoved off to the side and passed because if he doesn't pass on, they don't get the funding for him.
Yeah. Yeah, and to take that a step further, my question is why, like the stuff that's going on in Anchorage with the shutdowns and everything is why. Why the state, why the governor, why they haven't stepped in. And the excuse I've gotten from assembly members and that was that, well, we have our own laws and Anchorage is pretty much, even though it's part of Alaska, we're different, we get to make our own rules basically. Well, if you have that mentality, then why don't you take care of your own schools too, and we'll pull the funding totally from the state and the state won't even fund your schools. Since you have this this lone mentality of doing stuff, then go ahead and fend for yourself. And that takes me next to the UAA is what is the tuition for UAA?
Almost as much as what you pay to go to Harvard right now.
Okay, now why is the state subsidizing anything with the tuition that much?
Because what they're actually charging the students is not the Harvard price. They're charging the students
but they're
this
not
lower amount, and the state is subsidizing the rest of the remaining money that costs for the education.
right, but they're not getting a Harvard education
They're not.
because I do not see people rushing to UAA to get degrees. All right,
Because scholastically, score-wise, they're ranked just like our K through 12 education system.
Like in the
They are
40s.
at the bottom of the list for the
so in fact,
education.
in fact, kids are leaving to go somewhere else to get educated.
Yes.
All right, they're not coming here. So we have to look at that. We have to look at that. And is that the governor's fault? No, he's not running the school. Who's running the school? The president of UAA. How long has he been in power there?
He'd been there for quite a long time before they just determined here just about a month ago or two that he's just not diversified enough for them.
Well, they're going to get somebody that's going to be just. They're not going to get somebody that's going to be in that position. Same thing why I want to get elected, to help the people, to help the students to get the education that they need. They're in it for a political reason, to make money.
Yeah.
And they don't give a crap about the students because, you know, and people, why do we have 100 million campuses around Alaska of the University of Alaska school system? Why do we need that? You know, we got one in the valley, we got one Barrow, or wherever it is, all these different places, we have different things. Why can't
you got Bethel and Merrill. There are three economic resources that they have to generate money: is government, K through 12, or actually there's four: government, K through 12, the universities of Alaska, and then the fourth one is what they never want to talk about: what they don't make for an income running their own businesses. I mean, because if you look at where their diversity of income comes from, the bulk of it is from their K through 12, through their University of Alaska, and through healthcare.
Yeah.
All three of them is what I classify as my government sitting there when you kind of lump them all into one group. And then you have the one small pie that makes up less than 5% of their city's income, which is the local residents that run a private business, the person that has the little mom and pop grocery store, or the one that's running the hotel.
Yeah.
But as for where are all the jobs at, government,
yeah.
K through 12, universities, healthcare.
And it's all government.
And it's all
pretty
government.
much, yeah.
Yes.
And if you we really need to look at that, because if you look at the largest, you know, UAF and UAA, the student ratio to employee is like 2 to 1.
Yes.
So there's like 2 students to 1 employee. That's ridiculous. All right. Why do you need that many people working? What do you do? Well, it's government, you know, because it's a government position. Well, we can't do away with the government position. Well, we have to get over that and say, yes, we can. All right. And it can't be to where, you know, where you get tenure and then you stay there and then you get paid. I don't know how much it is. You know, there's so many things that can be done, and that our governor actually tried to do, but was stopped. All right, so because it's somebody, UAA is somebody's golden calf, all right? And I guarantee let's get back to it, Rasmussen Foundation probably pumps, you know, has a lot to do with that, you know, so.
They do.
Yeah, so, you know, how many grants, how many scholarships, or whatever it is, or what, you know, I mean, we can just talk all day about that, but that, you know, there's definitely cuts that can be done, and even Natasha said it herself in one of the videos I saw about something that her grandfather said about building things, that you can't build stuff without a hatchet. You need to cut stuff down and get rid of stuff before you can build something new. But she didn't, I think it was a different
her analogy
context.
was along the lines of, and because I got videos of my own of council meetings that she's had with different chambers out there. And her idea, as my grandfather said, is we take a hatchet and we chop down what doesn't work and reformat it into something new that does work. That is the reason why we need your permanent fund dividend, so that we can take apart what is not working out there and spend that money on organizations that's going to help grow the new foundation. But without your money to do it with, we can't grow these foundations, which is government, healthcare, education.
I was just using her words against her because the concept is true. The context, I'm using it in a totally different context.
I understand.
You know, and you have to chop down the weeds and get rid of it, because the weeds, you know, it smothers out the flower. You know, so if you have something good that's working, but you got all these weeds that are around it, you got to pull the weeds out, man. And that's where all these little, that's where most of our money goes to, because it's just like any budget. I mean, think about it. You can bring it back to your household budget, all right? That my wife is big on budgets, man. She lets you spend this much, and she's on it. Like if we go $1 over, she's there, you know. But you can't just, you know, spend, you know, $5 here on a coffee and then buy a drink over here, whatever, and then that builds up, because that's where most of your money gets wasted in stuff that you don't need, right? And if you're gonna, I mean, how many people? And this is the sad thing about it. I'm a big Dave Ramsey fan, so if you live beyond your means, you go into debt. All right, and that's where we're at. All right, because Alaska's living beyond our means. The government's living beyond the means. So you have all these credit cards, and you rack up the debt, and you never pay them off. All right. Instead of, you know, you use that logic that Dave Ramsey has, that if you don't have the cash to buy something, then don't buy it. You don't need it. You know, do we really need this? Because this is the bottom line: is that probably more than half of the programs that we have that the state pays for, neither you or I are eligible to take part in.
Yep.
All right.
I'm not eligible for none of them.
Yeah, I mean, I'd probably maybe venture 3/4, maybe. I don't know, maybe 100. I mean, I can't get Medicaid. I can't get you know, help with going to school. Certain grants I can't apply for. Native care, I definitely can't have anything to do with that, right? So I mean, there's lots of things that we don't have access to, that we pay for anyway.
They keep claiming that the diversity is what gets you in this world anymore, and we got to make sure that diversity is what gets you to be able to advance. If I was black, I would be able to get this loan, but because I'm white, I can't get this loan.
I thought you had privilege, bro.
That's what I'm told all the time. I got white privilege. I must be special. I need health care, but I'm just over the limit, income-wise. It says that you got to be paying for your health care
but you can't afford. But you can't afford it.
But they want 1/3 of my current income before taxes to pay for this health care that I can't afford to have, because I'm just over the poverty limit for being able to get it.
Yeah.
But here we got a Alaskan Native who has free Indian tribal health care, and they're immediately rolled into our Medicaid program that's supposed to be helping everybody, but they get top priority in Medicaid.
Yeah.
So they get that income brought in that pays for their health care, and only if when their Medicaid coverage does not cover the total amount, this is tribal Indian benefits kick in and pays the remaining amount. Yeah. Which kind of segues into my next little area here, which is this health and social services. Here in Alaska, they are by far almost triple to double, depending on if you combine K through 12 and university together or look at them individually. Yeah. If you look at them individually, they are almost triple what it is for K through 12, and are triple of what the university is spending on a yearly basis for their 2 years ago it was at $2.5 billion, $2.5 billion. Here we are, 2020, $3.6 billion got spent on health and social services. From then to now, that's a $1.2 billion increase in just 2 short years. $600 million this past year, $300 million extra supplemental. They had 2 different supplementals. They only talk about the one that had the $600 million in it. That was the increase. 300 million of that was health and social services went to them. The rest of it was dealing with the fire damage, the remaining earthquake damage, and several other things that didn't quite cut the mustard. But that $300 million that was in that supplemental budget, that's not unknown. That's not unheard of. I mean, if you go to year before, it was 100 to almost $200 million that they had to give in an extra supplemental at the end of the year to cover the shortfall. Year before that, another 100 to $200 million added extra supplemental at the end of the year. This has been a traditional trend. And this is also on top of them increasing the budget for the healthcare year. Like I said, $1.2 billion increase in just 2 short years compared to what it was prior to that.
Yeah.
So the just 2 years, they had a $600 million each year extra above and beyond what was the previous year before. We're walking into another year of $1.5 billion shortfall. They're already saying that what is remaining of their CBR is going to be completely wiped out this year. They will not have enough money doing the same formula that they used this year to pay out our PFD, our $992 of the $1,000 they promised us all. And that's short of the $3,000 permanent fund that we should have got under the statutory formula. It's not like the money wasn't there. They just chose not to give it to us. And so here we are going into another fiscal downfall. Is there anything you can see yourself being able to get done in the healthcare department? Try to reduce this budget, change things? God help us. I mean, I'm going broke just talking about it. I mean,
I know. We have to get out of the mindset that the government is responsible for our healthcare. You're responsible for your healthcare.
I am.
All right. If you choose to smoke, right, and you get cancer, it shouldn't be my responsibility for my tax dollars to pay for your bad decisions. All right. I'm not saying you specifically, but I'm just talking about just people in general. We don't have that, that if you that basically that preventative maintenance type of a mindset. That if you you do all you can to take care of yourself. All right. I'd use myself as an example. I got diabetes, right? I was having problems getting my blood sugars under control on 3 different meds. And I reached a point like, something's got to be done. Doc was going to put me on another medication to keep them down. And I'm like, I'm done. I'm done. I got to do something. So you make that conscious decision. I cut the carbs out. I cut the sugars out, and in an 8-month time period, actually it was about 3 months is when it all went down. I dropped about 35 pounds. My A1C went from 8 to 5.5, and my blood sugars are now below normal, right? And it all takes a decision. And that's because I care about my health, all right? I have a grandbaby on the way. I want to be around, see him grow up a little bit, right? But if I keep making stupid decisions on my health, then, why should I rely on the government to be there to pick up the slack from my bad decisions? And that goes for everything. We live in a culture now that refuses to accept responsibility for our actions. All right? And if we don't change that mindset, it's like, well, shouldn't healthcare be a right? No, it shouldn't be a right. That's not you don't understand how rights work. A right, you have a right to take care of yourself and be healthy as much as you can. You also have a right to smoke a cigarette. You also have a right to shoot dope in your arm if you want, if it's legal, or however you want to do it. Would you do it yourself? That's the right. But when you see, here's my problem with it. When you start saying that healthcare is a right, you're looking at a service, because a doctor spends the money, goes to school, and learns how to be a doctor. So he basically is a servant. He's giving you his service. Right? How can the government legislate my service and make me do something for you How can the government do that and that be called a right? That may be a right for you, but how does that infringe on my rights? Right? Because that's basically indentured servitude, or even I'd go venture to say slavery, because you're telling someone what you need to do. This is your skill, and you need to take care of this person for this set amount of money. How can we do that? That's you can't do that. That you can't. That's not how rights work, because you're infringing on someone's. All right. So you're giving your right. You're giving this right for me to serve you. Does that make sense to you?
It kind of does. Yeah.
Yeah. And it's
I mean, I'll put it in a little bit more basic terms here. I go out, I went, spent my time, I got an education, and I call my education to the rule of hard knocks.
Yeah.
In my rule of hard knocks, I went out there and I banged my head and I took the time and I learned how to provide a service that is unique to the state of Alaska. What I do, I am literally someone that my skill set is not something that's taught in schools. You can't get the kind of education that I have and for what I do in a school system. I make a darn good living off of what I do because of my unique ability of the skills that I have and the service that I provide out there. There is no reason why I should have government coming in and saying, hey, you took the time to go and learn all this stuff. You became very skilled at the skills that you have. You are the best at what you do. But because this person over here doesn't have those skills, we want you to give up half of your income to give this person your half of the income so that they can utilize that income to do what they want with it because it's unfair that you worked your butt off.
Yeah.
And this person doesn't have anything because they didn't.
Yeah.
And no different with healthcare.
Yeah.
You got doctors. They worked their entire butts off. They got the skills. They got out there and became the best that they could become in the world.
They made the investment.
Exactly. But the only part that I have a problem with is the disparagements between what it costs me here in Alaska to get the same services that I could go down to, say, New Mexico and get the same services for 1/3 of the cost.
Well, that's the government involved in that too, and regulations and just, I mean that's part of the weed system I was telling you about. You got the flower that there's the thing that you utilize that you need, but all the other stuff around it. I don't see that. It's like I was one of the medications I was on is not offered generically, so the doc wrote me a script. I went to get it filled, and it was $500. That's with the insurance. I was like, what? I can't afford that, And why? Why is it so? Why is it? Because you look at monopolies, you look at, and then that's a whole different, ball game we can get in there with the, how the pharmaceutical companies control things and. So I'm not even going to go down that road because that'll take forever. But that's where you see that. You see that. I know a friend of mine that did. They had he left Alaska to get a procedure done in Arizona. It was cheaper to get it done in Arizona than it was up here.
Well, I got to throw one in on that. I'm glad that we've got legislation that was finally passed here recently that you can now price shop around. And if you can find a procedure or something that is cheaper elsewhere, our great old state will buy you a plane ticket, send you down there, let you go get it done someplace else, and come back here again all on their dime, so to speak.
Yeah.
Because it's cheaper to go somewhere else, even with the plane tickets and hotel costs, than it is to get it here locally.
Well, we can't get, my primary care doc is leaving. He's leaving Alaska, going elsewhere for better opportunity, and that's dang shame. And that makes me wonder. It's like, okay, well, I had heart surgery 12 years ago, so I got a good heart doc now, but what if he decides to go, and then it's like, if we don't have good docs here, I'm not staying, You know, and my wife actually, and this is kind of odd, is that she has VA care, right? So out of all the places we've lived, this is the best. Alaska has the best VA care she's ever had. That includes Georgia, Florida, Louisiana, California. Those places, the absolute best. And props to the VA here in Alaska because they do a good job.
My dad, God rest his soul, was up here. Agree with you 100%. Our VA up here is by far, no matter how far back you want to go, in my opinion, we have had the top-notch services that you could ever ask for. We weren't seeing the plaguing problems that they had down in the lower 48. But when it comes to extensive or intensive care, that's where our VA hospital up here in Alaska, at least it was back then. I'm pretty sure that it's not as bad as it was now for that. But if you had some serious problems, you had to go down to the States to go get help.
Yeah.
They couldn't provide those services here in Alaska. And then towards the end for my father, that was the case. He was over in Vietnam. He was a part of the everybody that was there that got sprayed with the Agent Orange.
Wow.
Unfortunately, when it decided to go rampant, it went rampant. It was a very quick thing to have happen. It was unexpected to all of us how quickly it had spread.
Wow.
And so here we are, you know, like you're describing it. But when it came to quality care, and which I thank God every day for President Trump.
Yeah, he changed a lot of that.
I mean, he took one of the worst, the VA system that they said it was irreparable. Nobody's ever going to be able to fix it. It's the worst that we ever had. This is a prime example of socialized medicine. And said, well, hey, I'm going to open it up so that you VA people, you can all go. You veterans are now allowed to go to any hospital you want.
The choice program, yep.
Oh, my God. Boy, talk about it. And then overnight, you could watch things happen. Free choice.
Oh, yeah. She still goes to, she had to go down to Seattle a few times, you know, because there's some things they don't offer here. But overall, you know, everything she's got good docs and really she's only got one VA doc. The other ones, you know, the specialists, normally they'd send you to the military doctors, but they don't, with the choice program, they don't anymore. They send you in the community. And there's the docs in town, you know. And I just hope that they stay. I hope that the state does something that turns the economy around to get people up here, to give them incentive to stay here, and not seek, elsewhere to make a living. You know, because we need them. You know, we definitely do.
So any topic you'd like to cover here, or you want me to go back to my notes and pull another one out of the hat?
It's up to you, man. Whatever you want to do.
All right, let's go into SB 26 and the statutory PFD laws that we have on the books.
Yeah.
We've got our statutory formula based off of a 5-year formula that's been around for over 30 years, 3 decades, almost 4 decades now. We have SB 26, which is a brand new law that they just crafted over the last couple of years. Takes a 5% POMV draw from our ERA, our permanent funds dividends savings account, and gives it directly over to our legislators to spend however they willy-nilly feel it needs to be spent of that money to cover that $1.5 billion shortfall. And oh, by the way, that $1.5 billion shortfall already includes that 0.5 or that 5% draw is already calculated in the money that they have, and we're still short that money. So none of that draw offsets what's there.
Right.
Their SB 26 law, the new one that they wrote, specifically says in it that they are supposed to be following the statutory PFD law. It does not have no cap built into it. But if you hear legislators down in Juneau talk about it, they say that we are capped at a certain amount that we are allowed to spend on both the state and capital budget and your PFDs. There's nothing inside of there that says there's a cap. There's a limit of how much they can give us. If our statutory PFD is supposed to be $3,000 per person, statutorily that's what they should be paying us, is $3,000 per person.
Yeah.
It has nothing to do with the state and capital budget, but because of laws that they had changed, and they did it the first time last year, and then they did it again this year, they use tax revenue, not the money that's sitting in our earnings reserve account, but tax revenue to pay a portion of our PFD. In fact, it was such a big issue this year that they said that if you don't vote for the CBR vote, which requires 3/4 of the legislators to vote, both the House and the Senate, to pass that draw, Alaskans are only going to see a $500 PFD instead of that $1,000 that we had written there, because $500 of that permanent fund dividend we were supposed to get was tax revenue coming from the CBR. They want to do the tax cap, which we talked about earlier, SB 104, which imposes, let's say, a $6 billion tax cap out there. That $6 billion tax cap is all they're going to be allowed to spend on both the state and capital budget and our permanent fund dividend. Senator Mike Shower just came out with the total for what this next year, or this current year's budget is looking like. Started out at $4.9 billion is what the legislators are saying they've spent. But it looks like after they've done all the pre-calculations and everything else, which is stuff that has been added in, it's going to be closer to $5.5 billion, not 4.9. That only leaves $500 million under their cap to pay us a permanent fund dividend with. If they have another $300 million supplemental like they did this year, let's say just for healthcare, because we don't have our fire season this year, all the stuff that costs the extra, hopefully no new earthquakes. So we have another $200 million increase. Well, that 5.5 now just turned into 5.7. That only leaves $300 million underneath their self-imposed cap to pay us a permanent fund dividend with. Where do you stand? Are you? I mean, I know a lot of questions, a lot of people out there, and this is one question that I know the audience out there really wants to know. Where do you stand with the statutory PFD?
Well, it was set up that way for a reason. Genius idea. All right. I come from Louisiana. Louisiana is a big oil state, along with Texas, Oklahoma, those places down there. We didn't set it up that way. And we have.
Why not?
Well, because it was. I don't think they, and I really never looked into it to find out why. But I can figure why corrupted politicians wanted quick money as opposed to looking in the future. Right.
Well, let me expand, because before you stick your foot in your mouth, I try to keep people from doing that. That's what these talks are all about. Alaska, back in 1949, in our great wisdom, we said we wanted to be a part of the United States of America. To become a part of the United States, we had to give up our mineral resource rights to our mining, timber, fishing, oil, anything that is considered a resource. And then for giving these resources up to our federal government, a portion of it anyways, we got to become the 49 states of the United States of America. In return, in the 70s, we had the great oil boom. They built the Trans-Alaska Pipeline going to the North Slope. Oil's now flowing through the pipeline, and they said we need to return what Alaskans gave up, our resources that we gave up for what we own underneath the ground, did own. But we never to that ownership. We just gave the rights to be able for the state to utilize the money that is generated from it. So our permanent fund dividend became into fruition in the 1970s. In the 1980s, through different works of different governors, Governor Hammond is one of the biggest names that gets thrown out there. They crafted our first permanent fund dividend. It went through several different changes over the next couple of years due to lawsuits and everything else, until they came up with a formula that got used for decades. In 1999, they wanted to use the earnings reserve account for the very first time to pay for government. Unlike now, then they gave the public, us Alaskans, the right to vote on that. Percent of Alaskans resoundingly came out and said no, under heavy opposition of the other side, to spend that money on government. We all still came out and resoundingly told them no. Governor Walker stepped in, took the money, first time using basically an executive order, and says, I am stealing half of your permanent fund dividend that the legislators had given you. Through the help of senators like Senator Coghill, he's one of the main reasons why we do not have a statutory PFD being paid today, and why they got away with the first one, was he told the illegal binding caucus, you will not bring this up for a veto vote for what the governor is his executive order to take that money away. Since then, legislators saw that as being the open door to use the ERA to pay for their shortfalls of government. And they've been doing it ever since then. Now, unlike what you were bringing up here before, Texans own the mineral rights underneath the ground that they are developing up. Alaskans don't. So in Texas, the reason why government doesn't step in the way they do here is because the people that are developing it own it.
Exactly, and that's what my point was, is that we did that, and that's why Louisiana different, Texas different. So with that being said, if you're not paying, because basically what that is compensation for you using the minerals that are under my house. All right, say I have whatever's under my house. So that's what I understand the PFD is. It's a compensation for the mineral rights. They give up we give up the rights or the ability to use those minerals for our own purpose. Let the state do it, and then we get this compensation. So with that being said, if you're not going to give me the full compensation that you promised me, right, then I want my rights back. I want my mineral rights back. And that's the only fair way to do it, is that you need to start from scratch and do what Texas did and just sell it. Whoever wants to own that land can have it, and then we, they do what they want on it, and then we charge the crap out of them taxes or whatever. We already do that with the oil companies anyway.
Shoot, 63% of their net gross income goes to taxes.
Yeah. So I mean, that
doesn't include the multi-billion. I mean, I saw King Economics, the article that I brought up earlier. You can find it. It's in yesterday's post, and it breaks down how much the oil companies made, how much went to their employees, how much revenue and taxes that they made. They made roughly $9 billion last year gross. Once they got done taking everything out, they had left $1 billion net. Out of that $1 billion net, they still had to pay their taxes. And did they really make the $1 billion plus that Prop 1? Prop
1 wants to, they want to do it even more, and take even more from them. So why don't we do that? And we just run them out, and that way there's nobody utilizing the mineral rights anymore. And we'll just sit and die, because nobody's doing anything on the land here. So
here's your 25% here, oil companies. Here's the 25% you get. We're going to eliminate what that is with Prop 1, and we're going to give you 10% now instead. We're going to take 15% of your income. Name me one business that's going to work for a 10%, 15%.
No, they're not. I mean, they're and that can segue into the resource stuff anyway. We need to open our resources across the board. Timber, seafood, mining, all that stuff. We got to stop the regulations, because that opens up jobs. When you open up jobs, you got people that say, man, there's opportunity. Let's move to Alaska. You got people coming in. You have the economy starts booming. I mean, that's a no-brainer. Right. It's a no freaking brainer. But no, we want to rape who we have here right now, and then run them out, and then what's going to happen? What are we left with? I mean, what is the whole purpose of doing this? So if you want to, if you don't want to give me my full compensation, and it's regardless if I actually have oil under my house or not. If I may not have any resources under there. That's not the point. The point is that was the trade-off for all Alaskans.
Yep.
And then you can take it a step further here, and I don't know if this will get me in trouble or not, but being in the military and being up here, I think that's for military members to partake in the PFD for only being here for 4 years and not making a commitment to stay here. This is for people that want to stay here, that are Alaskan citizens, and you may disagree with me on that or whatever, but you know, we lived here as the military. You know, not only do we get housing allowance, we also get cost of living. We made pretty good money with the military while we were up here, outside of the PFD, and I'm guilty of taking it but once, you know, you're in it, and it's like, you know, and I got to thinking about it, and I was like, you know, that really wasn't fair of us to do that, you know, because if you have a family of 6, you know, but anyway, that's another subject. But if you're not going to pay me my full PFD, then give me my rights back, and then let us do with the land what we want to.
Well, as with any corporation out there, you got your shareholders. Permanent Fund Dividend Corporation is exactly that. We, the people of Alaska, are the shareholders.
Yeah.
Name me one corporation: Microsoft, Apple, Xerox, IBM. I don't care. Name any of the top ones that are out there. Google. All of these corporations that have shareholders out there. Name me one corporation whose shareholders don't get paid their dividends because the corporation thinks that they can spend the money better than you can. How long do you think those corporations are going to be in business because shareholders say, I want to cash out right now, everything that's owed to me, goodbye?
Absolutely, man. You know, so
here the state of Alaska says we can't have our dividend because they can spend it better than we can. You shareholders, you don't mean anything to us.
Dude, these people are doing what they want, and I said it earlier. The ballsy attitude, you know, is that they think they can get away with murder, and unfortunately they do, because nobody's holding them accountable for it. Nobody's doing it, you know, because we can't go to Juneau, and you know, we can't afford to go there. There's no road getting there, right? We can only get there by an airplane. It costs, you know,
$600 for a round trip ticket. Then you got $100, $120 a night for a hotel room.
Exactly.
You got to pay for your meals because you're living in a hotel room. So you got to be able to afford the meals that you eat while you're there too. So the bill keeps racking up. Just to go and spend a 4-day trip there to continue to stand at your legislator's door, knocking on it to get a few minutes of their time.
I've never seen that before, man. You know, where you're so secluded from your leadership. Now, yes, they have the LEO building, whatever it is here, and you know, but how many actual, you know, you cannot go there where it's in session. You can't testify. Yeah, they have this stuff on. Have you seen them, guys, when you're testifying? If you're calling in,
as you're watching them on gavel, they're sitting there playing with their cell phones as they're listening to people
they don't give
a
crap, you know.
As they're leaning over, chuckling, having their own little private conversations.
You could start speaking.
I've watched more than my fair share of them.
Yeah, you can start speaking in tongues, you know, over the thing, and they won't, you know, they still do. They're not even listening to you. You know, so it's useless. It's really useless. So that's my stance on it. That if you're not going to abide by what the law says, then start from square one. You know, give us the mineral rights back and let us do what we want. You know, and if you have one guy that owns this land and he wants to sell it to Chevron or whoever, that's his choice because it's his land. Let him do what he wants to it, and then we don't get anything out of it. You know, well, that's just how it is. I mean, you know, the PFD is not going to make or break me from staying here, right? So if you take the full thing away, don't steal it, you know, but do what's right. Give the people back who own the land. Let them have the rights back to their mineral rights back. And if I don't have any mineral rights, you know, where I can utilize or have compensation off of that, then so be it. I mean, that's neither here nor there. That's not why I live in Alaska. I don't live here because of the PFD. But if that's not why I live
here.
Yeah, I mean, it's an added bonus. Yeah, absolutely. But it's not the catalyst that keeps me here. So if you do that, then that's fine with me, you know. But if you're not going to do it, then don't freaking steal what's mine. Don't do that. You know, that's wrong. And how do we change that? We need people in Juneau that aren't afraid to stand up and say these things and do it, you know, and give the people what belongs to them. So
not have their voices shut down.
Yeah.
Having their everything stripped of everything that would have gave any voice
Sure.
of us constituents there in Juneau, any sort of a voice taken away.
Yeah.
Just because they won't agree with it, and back to full circle to the very beginning of the conversation.
Yeah.
The binding caucus.
Yeah, exactly.
The binding caucus says you're not allowed to bring these subjects up. They're taboo. The minute that you do, you're going to be penalized, punished, publicly ostracized for even attempting to broach the subject. And Rep. David Eastman, he is being raked through the mud right
Sure
now for being the only legislator, besides one other person who is in the Senate, and that's Senator Laura Reinbold.
Yeah.
Those two representatives right there on either side, the House and the Senate, are the only two, and the only two that I will put if I had to vote today on who I want in office, these are two people that I won't hesitate to say I'll vote for them every day of the week.
Yeah.
They're the only ones that have stood up on a very consistent basis, year after year after year, stood up to the swamp and said, sorry, I'm not a part of your binding caucus. My constituents, the voices that I represent, they've asked me when I go to Juneau that they want me to do this when I go there to represent them, and they haven't given an inch. And I'm watching the political monster machine, the kings and queens right now, actively working to try to make sure these legislators don't make it back to Juneau. I believe Reinbold's not up for election this year. She's not until like 2022, if my memory serves me right, or 23, somewhere in that area anyways. But you look at when it comes to who they're targeting out there, they're the same ones. I mean, Senator Shelley Hughes, Senator Vance, Representative Vance, Mia Costello, anybody that has stood up against the binding caucus, they're targeted this year.
Yeah.
They've got full campaigns, smear campaigns going on, just like you do.
Yeah.
You've got a smear campaign going against you right at the moment. There's no reason why who you got running in this election that you're running against Senator Natasha von Imhof. Your competitor out there is out there as a political joke, in my opinion. And I believe he's an independent listed at this year, possibly. And that's why we're not hearing anything in the general part of the election, or the primary part of the election. But it's nothing more to be fodder in the wind.
Yeah.
To keep the focus off of who are really going to work for the people of Alaska.
Yeah.
And those who work for the swamp.
Yeah, we don't want those in there. And you know, David Eastman, and you know, more power to him. The guy's a freaking you know, voice in the wilderness. I mean, he's just out there, you know, and he does his, you know, he stands for what he believes, you know, and I respect that, you know, and he's not wavering, and I believe his faith has a lot to do with that too, you know, because I've met him and had conversation with him before, and these people need reinforcements. You know, Laura and David, they both need reinforcement, and Sarah, you know, Mia Costello. They need reinforcement. And the more people we get in there that are against this, you know, and if we need to chip away at it, because it may not, you know, we may not get this go around a bunch of people in there that's gonna change it and get the binding caucus out of there, but we'll have enough in there that are gonna stand up against it that may not allow it to actually take place, if you understand what I'm saying.
Oh, I understand. I mean, that's the reason why if I lived in your district, I'd be voting for Stephen Duplantis.
Right.
If I lived in Senator David Wilson's district, I would be voting for LD Howard. Why? Because Senator David Wilson has been on record multiple times during our candidate forums that have been held out here, declaring, I am 100% going to be in the binding caucus because that's the only way I will have any power to get anything done. he is more than willing to sell out his constituents' votes so that those people that are so that he can have some sort of say while he's being there. Yet when what matters most to the public, the people that voted for him to be in office, gets thrown to the side because we want it is stripped back out of those budgets that he gives his final vote. I'm sick and tired of listening to legislators go and say, I voted to protect your permanent fund dividend. I voted to make sure this road got built. I voted to make sure this happened here, that happened there. But when it comes to, and these are all amendments or re-votes.
Yeah.
But when the final vote comes, they vote yes to that final vote that stripped out everything that they claimed they fought so hard. Instead of voting no, because those things did get stripped out. Where's the conviction there? I'm sorry, you voted to allow it to happen. After all this time, you claim you fought so hard, but when the actual vote that really counted, that stripped all that stuff back out of there again, that mattered to us, they vote against us every single time so that they can be a part of that binding caucus.
I don't know what, I don't know what goes on down there. I mean, it kind of like...
It baffles me, and I watch it on a daily basis. So.
But I mean, what goes on behind the closed doors, and I'm gonna, as a senator, I want to be accountable, and I noticed that Don Young, his wife is everywhere, wherever he goes, his wife is there. I mean, I went to D.C. a few years ago for Christians United for Israel conference they had, and we meet with our legislators to discuss legislation, pro-Israel legislation. And we met with him, and I've met him several times. In fact, I've seen him just recently. Every time I've seen him, he's with his wife. And I believe his previous, wife had passed away, and this is, his new wife, whatever. But it's his accountability partner, all right? Because when we went to visit him in his office, his wife was there in the office with him. And this was 6 o'clock at night. I mean, she's there with him every day. And I don't think she works. I think she just is there, and there's accountability. And that's where I'm at. I mean, when I say that, like I said, I don't know what goes on down there, behind the closed doors, what kind of seedy, I mean, it makes me sick thinking about some of the stuff. And when I think about that, it's like, I want to be held accountable. That's why my wife will be with me wherever I go. I mean, she may not be on the floor there with me when you step before things, but
so just wait until you see the rules that they have, what you are allowed to say publicly and what you are not allowed to say.
I don't get that. I don't. By whose authority am I allowed not to say something? Authority is that? Is that the bounding caucus, or is that just in general?
This is in general.
Well, they can take that.
There's a reason why you don't see other senators or other House members coming out and publicly saying stuff about other legislators and what they're doing behind the scenes. They're not allowed to. The minute they do, they get brought up on ethic charges. You have broken ethics.
Even if they're doing something illegal?
Yes.
That's dumb.
I mean, a good example of that would be Senator David Wilson, accused of upskirting that aide there for doing nothing more than standing beside a door that was having a private meeting that he was not invited into. The aide comes up and accuses him of listening in on their conversation. Wilson jokingly, probably in hindsight, probably would never do that again, pulls out his cell phone and pretends to slide it underneath the door, which the videotape in Juneau shows this is what happened. And says, if I truly wanted to listen in on it, I would hit record and I would just start recording every word that they're saying with my cell phone.
Yeah.
That's how easy it would be for me to listen in on their conversation. I don't need to be putting my ear up to the door to be able to hear the conversation. That aide immediately goes to the ethics committee, to wherever they filed their complaints in the House there, and they filed it, and immediately they're all demanding that David Wilson resign.
Yeah.
And you are to be out of here and everything else. And they're refusing to look at the tape or show anybody the tape that would completely administer him of any charges and showed him to be innocent. David Wilson goes to the press and makes his case in front of the press, which now forces the hands of those in charge of the ethic committees that are trying to get him to resign. And Gabrielle LeDukes, we got Chris Tuck, Bryce Edgman, Ivy Spinonzals, and I'm sure there's probably a few more names that I'm missing there that were a part of this big coup to get him removed.
Yeah.
Long story short, they drop the charges. They say, "Oh yeah, David was right. What he's being accused of is completely wrong." But because David went to the press, publicly criticized what was happening, they brought him up on ethic charges and made it stick.
Yeah.
So that when I say that you can't say certain things,
gotcha. Yeah.
Even trying to prove yourself innocent with proof that you're innocent and making that public brings you up on charges, you're going to be punished.
Yeah.
Because you expose something that is going on.
Bad. Yeah.
So and you got Senator Hughes, Senator Power. We brought up the REVAC, what happened there, and how that he got his appointments and positions, and all these people that got stripped of their committees. Their staff and everything else. REVAC was one of the main benefactors of them being stripped.
Yeah.
Because they were going against the binding caucus. They were speaking up publicly. This is how they got punished for being somebody that didn't follow their rules that they had set there in place. And I hate to say it, you're going to expect this to be what is going to happen. You're going to find out that what we see in the public is not what they're doing down there in Juneau.
Yeah. Bring it on. That's what I got to say, man. Bring it on.
You're a brave soul, and I say that seriously because I've been asked to run myself. I've had several people come up and approach me this past year and says, "We want you to run for office. We think you would be a great candidate. Your knowledge on politics here in Alaska is very, very vast." And I looked at him and I said, "I can't do it. I refuse to do it." "Well, why not?" And I said, "Because I'm too honest."
Yeah.
I said, "I'd be speaking my mind left and right, and every time they told me something stupid, I would be calling them out for being freaking stupid."
Yeah.
And
that's what we need, though, I think, man. Yep.
And so yeah, I that's why I report on the news.
There you go.
Not be in the news, so to speak. There's just too much dirt there to want to uncover, and to have to take that key and lock my mouth and throw it to the side because of their rules.
Yeah.
I couldn't do it.
Yeah.
I mean, so I really do hope that you get down there. I would love to see another Senator Shower style legislator down there in Juneau, another David Eastman, another Laura Reinbold. Getting people voted into office that are not going to be putting up with the swamp shenanigans and speak up out for the people that voted for them.
Yeah, that's what I plan on, man.
All right, we are getting close to being out of time, so I am going to run a couple of last questions by here. The CBR vote, which is the second part of the state and capital vote. The first vote, you only need regular majority, 51% of both the Senate and the House to vote for it to pass the state and capital budget. But to tap into the constitutional budget reserve, CBR, you have to have 3/4 of the vote. They put the reverse sweep in. Do you know what the sweep is? The sweep is all the accounts out there from like power cost equalization, the student loans that they have programs and all that. At the end of the year, they got to take all of that money in all those different accounts and bring it back into the general fund. And once they at the end of the session, they've got to, when they finalize the budget, that money's got to be reverse sweeped back into those accounts again based on their approvals. There's over $1 billion sitting in there, slush funds that never gets spent. That money is doing nothing but growing bigger and bigger and bigger every year. The stuff that by the way, that's another thing you're not allowed to say on the Senate floor is the word slush fund.
Oh yeah.
It is part of their rules that you cannot say slush fund. I wish I was joking, but I actually have the records that prove that to be the actual truth. So they got this slush fund sitting there of over $1 billion, but they're going to hold it over your head when it comes to the CBR vote. They're going to say, we've got to do the reverse sweep. We've got to make sure it passes. If you don't do it, think of these poor Alaskans that are going to suffer because they have no power cost equalization, so they can't fill up their heating oil, they can't fill up their diesel fuel for their generators and all this other stuff because you didn't vote for it. Because you didn't vote for it this year, we would have only seen a $500 PFD instead of a $1,000 PFD because the tax money that they used to pay for it came from that CBR vote, illegally paid for our half of the PFD.
Yeah.
Then you got the CARES Act money. They threw the CARES Act money in as part of the CBR vote too. So if you don't vote yes for it, none of this CARES Act money is going to have our portion of the money needed to fund this, to get that money from the federal government to distribute throughout the state of Alaska. So mayors like Mayor Ethan Berkowitz can illegally use those funds to fund all of their socialist left programs that they've wildest dreams instead of helping the people of Alaska who are suffering.
Yeah.
If you don't vote for it, the people of Alaska are going to suffer. This is not unique. Other than the CARES Act money, the other two items have been a part of their CBR vote year after year after year, using it as leverage to say you must vote yes so that they can get those 3/4 votes, or we're going to publicly monitor you and turn you into a villain that you don't care about Alaskans because you refuse to vote for it. The same thing that they say when it comes time to cut in the budgets for K through 12. You don't love our teachers. The teachers are going to be the first to lose their jobs if you don't vote for it. You're going to be facing this when you go to Juneau. I guarantee you. They had a prime opportunity this year. I stood in front of the TV. I'm cheering them on, going, you can do it. You can do it. I know you can do it. Vote no. When it came time for the CBR vote. Because when it came to the first part, the 51%, it was basically binding caucus lines to those that were not necessarily in the caucus.
Yeah.
When it came to the CBR vote, I watched people that were not necessarily in the caucus slide over to the caucus line and voted yes. Really super disappointed in the Senate. Why? Because only one legislator in the Senate voted no. Guess who?
Probably Laura.
You're right. You're right. Senator Laura Reinbold was the only senator that voted no. Every other senator voted yes because of those threats. We are going to make you look bad to Alaskans if you don't vote yes. Because look at all the things we've stacked up there to make sure that we're going to point out on an election season that you don't care about Alaskans. This is nothing more than a political stunt.
Yeah.
That's coercion, blackmail, extortion, whatever name you want to label what happened there, that's what it was. You're going to bump into this when you go to Juneau. You as a senator are taking over the Senate Finance Chair's position. Senator Natasha van Imhof, whose only sole priority is making sure her family and those nonprofits they represent continue to stay well funded. You're going to go to Juneau. They're going to try to play the same games with you. I don't see them changing their ways. Most of them refuse to even acknowledge the binding caucus rule. They all want to say, oh, it's the greatest thing since sliced bread.
Yep.
They've been doing it since the very first legislative session, some 60 years ago. What are your plans when you get there? I mean, like I said, I'm sitting there in front of the TV. I'm rooting them on. Don't vote, don't vote, don't vote. And then, oh my God, I was crushed.
Yeah, I'd have to definitely make allies with Laura Reinbold, because I already know, we've met, and she helped me out a lot actually in the last election that was running up against the state rep. But when it comes to that, a lot of what you would about that the CBR, other than maybe I think one or two other people I've had a conversation about with, you filled me in on a lot of that, and I don't know enough about it to, gather on what you're telling me. All right, what I just heard from you when you're talking about moving funds to here and then moving it back, that doesn't sound right. It doesn't sound like it's kosher. If you're making it to look one way and then moving it back, and then like maybe you're inflating number. I don't know what you're doing, but what the point is, maybe to get more budget, or I don't know what the point is. But that in and of itself draws a red flag for me. Just that one part, all right, where you're actually moving either funds or whatever it is. Something different.
Our Constitution that has money in it. At the end of the year, there's remaining funds that are inside of there, that account, that bank account.
Yeah.
By law, state laws, they have to take that money out of that account and put it back into the general fund. So this is a part of their fund that's got to be done. Legislators pre-approved that money to be reverse the sweep back into those bank accounts again.
Yeah.
We're just going to throw the power cost equalization, look at that as our one prime example. Let's pretend there's $1 billion in it. They sweep it over to the general fund. It's now there to be able to use. Power cost equalization only costs $100 million a year of that $1 billion. Instead of just reverse sweeping the $100 million back into that fund for what they actually need, they take that entire $1 billion that they swept and return that entire $1 billion back to that power cost equalization account. So it has a $900 million surplus sitting there that technically won't be used.
Yeah.
Couldn't that money right there could have been used towards paying other bills?
Sure. Yeah. That's what I mean, that makes sense what you're saying, and yeah, definitely. I mean, if that's that's a no vote. I mean, because you, like I said, when you're shuffling stuff around like that, my wife worked finance in the Air Force, and she would come and tell me. I worked when I was in the Navy. I was also I was a storekeeper, which is a supply guy. So you shuffle stuff around like that because that's government. You shuffle it around, but when you're when you're shuffling Alice packs, as opposed to billions of dollars, that's a different thing. So when I talked to my wife about some of the budgets that they would do, and they would allot a budget for something, and then towards the end of the fiscal year, if they had surplus left, they were like buying pencils. I mean, we're buying everything so they would get that budget again next year. You don't want it to shrink. You want to get that much or more. So that's what I gather what's going on
Here's
here.
Our treadmill workstation, computer in the front of it, even
though
we don't have anybody. Everybody here weighs 300 pounds. We're still going to buy this because we got to spend the money.
Yeah, we got to spend. No, you don't have to spend the money. I mean, you don't. I mean, so that's no. I mean, that's bad stewardship of the utilization of money, because yes, you could absolutely use it for something else. You could something that's needed or whatever. I mean, I don't know, when I get down there, I'm sure a whole Pandora's box of crap will open up where I can see where money actually needs to be spent. So yeah, that would be definitely no. So I would stand with her on that, man. Like I said, they need allies on that, and like I said, I look up to her, and she's one of the only ones standing up for what's going on here in Anchorage. I mean, she's making I think they call it Freedom Fighters or something. She's got together with some people to do some
Save Anchorage. And,
yes. and she's involved in that. So it's like minds, because maybe we can start our own caucus. I have no idea, but I mean, yeah, that's like that just doesn't seem kosher, and a definite, definite no on that one. So,
all right, we're going to give you the last 3 questions here. They're kind of all rolled into one big one.
Okay.
But the first 2 are anyways. If voted in, what would be your priorities to accomplish? What bills would you push to pass?
Those are the 2 the priorities. This is what I've been kind of running on the whole thing. Whenever I've spoken, you're kind of the only person I've talked to where we've gone in depth on some issues. Whenever I've spoken, and I know these issues are important to people, but what the main thing I see people having a problem with right now is this COVID stuff. They're hurting. They're out of work. They don't have money, and the legislature didn't do squat to help them out. Nothing. All right. We could have utilized. I could have used that back pay on the PFD. I'm out of work. And they could have. It's a rainy day. We're waiting. We don't want to. Take away from our generations. No, we can't look into the future with this right now because this is happening right now. Yeah. We have to do something now. I would address that these people, why in the hell didn't you do anything? And that's the main thing when I talk to people, because they're hurting. Yes, they do care about all that stuff, but that's kind of on the back burner right now because of all this COVID stuff. And then especially being in Anchorage, with the mask mandates and all the other stuff, they're more concerned with that than everything else. So, as far as when I get in there, I would address that. I mean, because if I'm in this is not going to be over by January. I can guarantee you. We're not going to see us coming above this. So something needs to be done. That's the first thing on the burner, is that people need help and we need to help them now. And we need to look at that PFD and we need to get these people their money. And stop all this debating and all this other crap, then we'll worry about the bills, that need to get through. So I would push that, but of course I'm probably going to be in the minority on that one. So I don't know exactly how I would handle that, but I'll have to.
By putting your foot down and sticking to that minority, then that's.
Yeah, I mean that's people are hurting now, and yeah, we need to look at the binding caucus rule and get it changed, and we need all the other stuff changed too. But like you said, that doesn't. I mean, at least they'll get a good idea of where I'm going with the binding caucus when I get there. If I'm not, I'm not concerned with any of this other crap. We need to get people that money. We need to get them back on their feet. Open the economy, open fully. Hopefully by then, at least the state will be open, more, if not Anchorage totally, but I don't.
Well, if we believe the rumors that are floating around there right now, November 4th, this virus is going to disappear.
Yeah, this would disappear. Yeah. And that would be good. Then we can talk about that stuff, and then the bills that need to be passed. But it's the constituents, and then because I'm not really hearing from them. Not like I did last time. The PFD, SB 91 were the big things back in the last election. This is the COVID stuff. The masks and the COVID stuff. And that's where I was more like, why in the heck isn't this?
And I'm going to throw it in there, and our PFDs, like you were just saying.
That's a part of the COVID stuff, because if
we don't have it, we're not going to survive it. Too many tourist business. 30% of Alaska businesses are still closed.
And what?
That never reopened during any of this reopenings because they can't.
Yeah, because it's all tourists.
Yeah.
And the tourists aren't allowed to come here. Denali Park. When you go up the
you can drive the road now. Unheard of.
Yeah.
That was always a special lottery at the end of the year. Now you can drive the road because they're so desperate to get our business.
Crazy, man. It really is.
All right, the very, very last question. Mm-hmm. Do we have a revenue or a spending problem?
We got a spending problem, man. Yeah, I think the revenue. You just got to learn how to utilize. I told you, I'm a big fan of Dave Ramsey. You can make do with what you got. My wife and I have been, we've been through some tough times, but we've never been without a roof over our head, never been without food in our stomach. Went through a bankruptcy. and still, we still got through it. We learned how to live without, if that makes sense.
It does.
And that's what we need to do here, because I mentioned it earlier that they're probably a large percentage of the programs we have in Alaska, a lot of people don't have access to, and they can't utilize it. So we need to really take a look at those, and do something about the spending. Yes, can we get the revenue up? Yeah, the revenue comes by growing the economy, by opening up the
Get the
mineral
oil flowing from Anwar,
exactly.
Get the pebble mining, get the Tongass forest cutting down the trees and reforesting as they go.
You saw, I wasn't here during the oil boom in the 80s, but you probably saw it when the pipeline did. You not only had workers coming up here working on the pipeline, you also had people coming up here opening up restaurants, opening up shops, opening up all this stuff because people were coming up here.
Housing market was through the roof.
Yeah.
You couldn't build them fast enough to fill them.
Exactly. And now we have a glut. And why? Because we've shut all this stuff down. And if we could just open it up, people want to, we're looking at a different, as this new generation comes up, these younger kids, they're not, a lot of them I talk to are not interested in going to college and getting a cushiony job. They're wanting to know how to rebuild an engine, how to build a table, how to, the stuff that we've lost over the past, maybe decade or so, maybe 20 years I go back and venture and say, because we've seen a drop off in skilled labor, right? Yeah. And more people wanting to do, computer stuff or job, make quick money and do it. And now they're wanting to occupy themselves because they spent their childhood sitting here on a video game, and what is that? I want to get my hands to, I want to know what it's like to smell sawdust, and not just see a picture of it on somewhere, and
to take a hammer and actually hit a nail on the head.
Yeah. So I think hopefully we're seeing a change towards that, but we got to provide them the opportunity to do that. So open up the resources, open up that kind of stuff, get timber people up here, get the pebble mine, get it open.
Get the trades.
All the trades, yeah, because we'll see an influx in all of that. If we open up a few of the resources and provide the jobs, then we'll see that. I'd love to have a food truck, man. I love cooking. In fact, I'm the kitchen manager at Little Beaver Camp out there in Big Lake. And my wife and I, that's a dream. We'd love to have a food truck. I ain't about to get one right now. Not with all the stuff going on here and all the regulations and stuff. And plus, I wouldn't do it here. It's a bad investment. Why? Well, you're not investing in your community. Well, I'm not, because I'm not dumb. Because our leaders are not investing in our community. They're not making that investment. So if I see them making a move towards bringing industry up here, then why should I, take that risk? Yeah. So.
Well, I would like to thank you very much. We got Stephen Duplantis here, Stephen Duplantis.
There you go.
Running for Senate District F. And this is in Anchorage. Give us one quick rundown. Where's this district geographically?
District L.
District,
yeah, it's all right.
Did it again.
District L is South Anchorage, from Seward Highway up to Tudor, west to maybe around Minnesota, and then back down south. That's basically a square, but it's kind of zigzagged in and out of there, So, but that's the basic area. You could look at the House districts 23 and 24 are included in the Senate District L. So.
Well, thank you again for your time.
Thank you, man.
This has been a wonderful interview, and I hope the folks out there who are currently, the elections have already begun. You can go and vote. There's many different places out there that you can go to and cast your early voting right at this moment. August 18th is the deadline for the primary. That is the main day to get out there and vote. Anytime between now and then, you can go and cast your vote at different locations. All of the ballot areas will be open on the 18th. I always recommend go and knock on your neighbor's door, go call up your friends, pack yourselves all into a vehicle safely. Wear your mask if you're worried about it. Go and vote. Bring your friends. Make sure that they're voting. This is one election season that we cannot not get out and vote. It is so important that we do it this year. We need to make sure that this is the biggest voter turnout that Alaska has ever seen.
Yeah, we need it.
There is too much at stake out there that we got to make this happen. We got to take our priorities in life. And right now we've got a state that's going straight down the drain. And unless we want to be living with high taxes, watching over half of our income disappear, going to the swamp of Alaska to pay for special services that none of us ever get to enjoy, that's the directions it's going if you don't get out and vote. Your vote, not voting, is a vote for a Democrat. By voting, you are going to help support those that are wanting to get into Juneau, that are wanting to make the changes, not the same swamp that has always been there. And Stephen Duplantis here is one of those people that would be a vote. Yeah. If I lived in his area, I'd be voting for him.
Right on, good.
I'd like to put out a big special thank you to the Windbreak Hotel here. Most of you might know it as the Trout House, for providing us this wonderful space to be able to hold these interviews in. Without them, this interview would not be possible, so thank you. Yeah. You guys are very gratefully appreciated out there. Now, for one last item to cover on my own behalf, my own personal behalf, I have been fighting for 3 long plus years, exposing the dirt here in Alaska, bringing it to you guys out there in the world that we live in. It has turned into a full-time job. I could not believe how much dirt that I'm uncovering from Juneau, uncovering in my own hometown here in the valley and around the different parts of the state. And it's becoming to the point that I financially just can't afford to keep up with it all. It costs a fortune to be able to do this, and doing it, trying to run a full-time job at my own company on top of being a full-time journalist reporter, bringing this information to you guys. I need your help. Contribution, please. Go to my website, politidick.com, Politadick. That's Poltadick.com, and click that donate button. Donate some money today. $5, $10, $50, $100, $500. Any amount helps. Every little penny goes towards making sure that my content is expanding, getting better every day, improving the equipment that I'm bringing it to you with, making sure that you guys are on top of the dirt and the politics that is going on here in the state of Alaska. And as always, one more time to remind you all, I love saying this line, share. Share, share, share. Facebook squeals on you if you don't share, so share this video. And you guys all have a great day. Thank you, Alaskans, for tuning in with the meet and greet with Stephen Duplantis.
Right on.